X-Men 2 by David Hayter. Story by Bryan Singer and David Hayter. Current revisions, Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris. Blackness. And then a speck of light which grows and twists, spiraling like a glowing strand of DNA. The image is pierced by the deep, rich voice of
mutants. Since the birth of their existence, they have been regarded with fear, suspicion, and hatred. Across the planet, debate rages. Are mutants the next link in the evolutionary chain?
We rush through the DNA chain, the edges blur with speed.
Or simply a new species of humanity, fighting for their share of the world. Either way, one fact has been historically proven. Sharing the world has never been humanity's defining attribute.
In a rush of music and light, words fill the screen. X-Men 2. Credit sequence ends with the slamming of Cerebro's armored door. An image forms in the door's crystal lock, an image of the seal of the President of the United States. Interior, White House, tour entrance, day. Close on the seal as we hear a young female tour guide.
We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break by the bonds of our affection.
The camera pulls back to reveal the seal printed on the placard below a portrait of Abraham Lincoln.
Lincoln said in his first inaugural speech as the 16th president, "It's one of my favorites."
The tour group approaches a security checkpoint. White House. Security checkpoint. The tourists walk through the metal detector. Secret Service agents walk closely.
If you please have your identification ready, we'll begin the tour.
One man is standing in the back. He wears a baseball cap pulled down over his dark, shadowed face. As others go through the checkpoint, he steps to the side and turns a corner. He stares at a janitor's closet just past security. White House. Bam! A flash of light and smoke appears under the closet door jab. The door cracks open and the man steps out. As he veers away from the tour group, a hand is placed on his shoulder. The man turns to see an agent staring him down. The man nods and looks up, finally revealing his face. He has the face of a demon, skin so blue it appears black as his eyes are yellow, dilated, and glazed over. This is Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler. The agent quickly reaches for his pistol, but from behind the agent's head, a forked tail reaches up and wraps around his neck, throwing him against the wall and then slamming him to the ground. Another agent rushes towards Nightcrawler. His tail wraps around the gun and throws him to the ground as he flips over the agent and darts down the corridor. Over office, the Oval Office agent Walters draws his gun and presses his hand to his earpiece, listening to the commotion. President McKenna, distinguished, late 60s, sits at the desk. He drops the phone and stands up.
What in God's name is going on?
6 more agents swarm into the room and form a circle around the president, guns pointed at every door. White House. Alarms blare as Agent Van Scoy turns to see Nightcrawler at the end of the hall, teeth blared like an animal, running straight towards him. Van Scoy aims and fires, and Nightcrawler takes to the walls, still running at full speed. Before the agent can fire again, Nightcrawler flies at him feet first, smashing Van Scoy through a set of doors. Nightcrawler flicks the gun away with his tail. He moves down the hallway and turns a corner to see 6 agents, guns drawn.
Hands on the floor, no tricks.
Nightcrawler spins around and sees 6 more agents enter the hallway. He's trapped. 12 guns are jammed into his face. Nightcrawler smiles, revealing spiked white teeth. Bamf! Nightcrawler is gone, leaving behind a cloud of smoke. Oval Office. The Oval Office agents listen closely. There is static on their radios. The sounds of shots right inside the door. Men screaming. The president is too scared to move.
Get him out of here!
No, we don't know how many there are.
The west door bursts open, filling the room with stumbled, coughing agents and thick smoke. The Secret Service agents surround the president in a Roman circle, guns pointed in every direction. Bamf! Nightcrawler appears in front of an agent, kicks him across the face. Bamf! He appears next to another and hurls him across the room with his tail. Bamf! 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 Nightcrawler takes out the entire circle of agents in the blink of an eye. Nightcrawler lands on the ground, staring at McKenna. He leaps and pins the president on top of the desk. President McKenna looks up to see Nightcrawler looming over him, his eyes glazed over, his face emotionless. With a flick of his tail, the mutant pulls a knife from the boot and flips it into his clawed hand, tied to its hilt and a long red ribbon. Another agent runs in, trying to aim through the smoke. Nightcrawler raises the knife. Bang! A shot rips through Nightcrawler's wrist. Screaming, his eyes suddenly dilate, huge, then snap back to normal. He shakes his head as if waking from a nightmare, suddenly realizing where he is. Bamf! Nightcrawler disappears. The secret agent lowers his gun and moves to the president's side.
What? What the hell was that?
Close on the knife, sticking straight up from the center of the desk, a ribbon hanging from the handle. Push on the ribbon, 3 words written in gold: Mutant Freedom Now. Fade to white, an endless plain of snow, pierced only by a long line of footprints leading up to Logan, aka Wolverine, wearing only a leather jacket. He's trekking through Alberta wilderness. Morning. Logan reaches the top of a mountain crest and stares across the snow at a hydroelectric dam and an old weathered sign, Alkali Lake Industrial Complex. He takes it in. Then Logan sees it downstream from the dam. The abandoned base, circular, half buried in snow. Alkali Lake Military Base. Moments later, dwarfed by both nature and the scale of the building, Logan approaches this abandoned military base covered by ice and snow. Closer, he passes through a mouth-like opening, entering a giant circular courtyard with doors lining the perimeter. Alkali Lake Base, main building, a massive and destroyed room. The walls are metal and thick. Logan wanders silently through the halls leading to cleaned out rooms and deserted spaces. Then, at the far end of the hall, a lone wolf stands, watching him curiously. Logan freezes, waiting for the wolf to make the first move. Beat. It turns and walks down a flight of stairs. Logan watches it disappear, then follows. Alkali Lake Base, basement room. He flicks on a small flashlight and walks a bit further into the massive room when he hears a wolf howl. He turns quickly. Snicked! His trademark claws shoot from the knuckles as he turns back around. He sees it. The only clue to his past, the only clue that links him to this place. Claw marks, 3, slicing the wall. Angle on Logan, wondering if he could be faced with himself for the first time. Wider, Logan slowly turns around, realizing that there is nothing left of this place. Interior, Science Museum, day. Push in on a diorama of a winter landscape. A mother wolf, blood on its teeth, angrily protects its young from a Neanderthal hunter. Blood on his teeth, hunched over, he holds up a large club. A child peers at the display.
Contrary to popular belief, Neanderthals are not the ancestors of modern-day humans, but rather distant cousins who died out about 30,000 years ago.
Wider to reveal an exhibit on human evolution.
They were replaced by a more advanced race called Cro-Magnon man, also known as Homo sapiens.
At an Ice Age display, 12-year-old Artie stares at a woolly mammoth. A Kool-Aid stained little girl glares at him.
Also known as human beings. In other words, all of us.
Artie looks at her and smiles. She scowls and sticks out her tongue. Artie returns the gesture, but his tongue is black and forked. The little girl whines and runs to her parents. A shadow looms over Artie, and he looks up to see Storm staring down at him. He smiles innocently.
Not here, Artie.
Storm takes him by the hand and continues her lecture. A group of kids behind her. They are Professor Xavier's students. They're just like normal kids on a field trip, but their appearance is different. Most are in their early teens, a few as young as 11. Other museum patrons try not to stare as they pass.
But Miss Munroe, aren't we mutants?
Storm checks to see if anyone heard, then kneels down.
Yes, but mutants are the only people with some extra active genes. We are still human.
Artie smiles. As Storm stands back, she sees the other kids gone. They're off to the side, staring at an exhibition on mutation, filled with illustrations and photographs of hideously deformed mutants. A timeline tracks mankind from the ape-like Homo habilis to Homo sapien. And then the line suddenly splits into a second group labeled Homo ? The children look horrified and hurt.
Come on, children. Let's go.
She ushers them away, trying to hide her own discomfort.
Storm?
She turns to see Jean Grey and Scott Summers, Cyclops, walking with another group of kids.
Everything okay?
Yes. How was the medical exhibit?
The kids liked it. Scott was bored.
It was boring.
Storm is distracted. She does a quick head count of the kids.
Jean, where are the others?
A brilliant glowing light swirls gently in front of the face of a teenage boy. This is John Allerdyce, aka Pyro. Rack focused to reveal that the swirling light is fire, and Pyro is manipulating it between his fingers. Wider to reveal Pyro sits next to Rogue, who stares at the fire, transfixed. Next to her, Bobby Drake is nervous. On the other side, Kitty Pryde watches, embarrassed. They are sitting in interior Science Room Museum food court. Pyro manipulates the fire with ease, creating a series of marbles that effortlessly flow between his fingers.
My turn.
She reaches to touch Pyro's hand. He flinches away.
No, it's okay. I can control it better.
Bobby watches jealously as Rogue's hand makes contact with Pyro's. There's a quick flash of light. Pyro smiles like he's buzzed. Rogue pulls her hand away with the small flame.
Wow, I feel warm.
But she can't control it, and it quickly grows larger, swirling around her hand. Rogue, be careful.
You got it.
She doesn't, and Bobby knows it. She continues wrestling with the flame when Bobby glances over at three teenage boys who are watching them from a few tables over.
Rogue.
But Rogue is too focused, trying to control the fire. Bobby nervously glances at the three teenagers now walking towards them.
Rogue.
Pyro quickly reaches over and puts the fire out. Rogue snaps her head up to see the three teenagers glaring at her. Teenager one is smoking a cigarette.
My friend wants to know how you did that.
Rogue looks at him, then Bobby, then Pyro.
Yeah, what again?
I can't.
Teenager 2 reaches towards Rogue's hand.
You really don't want to touch her.
Teenager 2 presses forward. Bobby stands up. Teenager 1 takes a drag. Pyro twirls his lighter in his fingers.
There's no smoking in here.
He blows the smoke into Pyro's face.
Oh, yeah? What do you do with that? Light your farts?
The teens laugh. He takes another drag from his cigarette. Push in on the glowing embers of the cigarette.
No, just assholes.
Pyro's eyes narrow, and whoosh! The flame of the cigarette travels as fast as lightning, incinerating the cigarette and setting the guy's jacket and hair on fire. He screams, furiously trying to pat it out. His friends panic. Bobby reaches up his hand and sends a stream of frost toward him. Immediately, the fire freezes and drops off. The teenagers stare at the young mutants, terrified. So does everyone else in the food court. Rogue, Bobby, Pyro, and Kitty quickly leave the room. Interior museum hallway near the gift shop. John.
Such a prick.
Without missing a beat, he pushes her to the right, and she phases through a wall, disappearing. After a second, she reappears on the other side, dazed. The group turns a corner and comes face to face with Storm. She is not happy. Jean and Cyclops are behind her with the other kids.
I think we should go.
Storm sees other museum visitors staring at a television near the gift shop.
I think you are right.
On TV, an image of the White House surrounded by army troops. The words "mutant assassination attempt" appears on the screen. As Xavier's students stare at the screen, Storm looks around, uneasy, at museum patrons who have also stare in shock at the news. Xavier's mansion, garden, later. A girl chases a boy around the fountain. He suddenly multiplies into 6 more copies of himself, confusing her. We pull back through a window into Xavier's mansion, Xavier's office. Cyclops is staring out the window at the kids. He turns around to Jean Grey, Storm, and Professor Xavier. A television silently plays a White House press conference.
Magneto's behind this.
No, I don't think so, Scott.
While Eric might have organized something like this from prison, for him, the gesture is far too irrational. It only hurts his goal of mutant prosperity.
You mean superiority?
If Eric had his way, yes.
In the background, the TV screen displays images of protesters on both sides of the mutant issue.
Do you think
You know how the government will respond to this. They will reintroduce the Registration Act.
Or worse.
Xavier stares at the protesters on TV, troubled.
Do you think the mutant was working alone?
The only way we'll know is if we find him before the authorities do.
Interior, Oval Office, day. Close on the knife mark, still left in the president's desk. Pull back to reveal William Stryker, 60s, wealthy, tailored, rubbing the mark with his finger.
It was close, wasn't it? Closer than anyone's admitted.
President McKenna is pouring 2 glasses of brandy.
What do you need, William?
My division needs your authority for a special operation.
The president's eyes takes a sip. He saw this coming.
And somehow I thought you were here to talk about school reform.
Funny you should say that.
A knock at the door. It opens, and an assistant lets in Senator Kelly.
Senator?
Mr. President, well, thank you for having me.
They shake hands.
I don't believe you two have met. Senator Kelly, this is William Stryker.
No, we've never met, but I've followed your career for years. It seems that your ideas about the mutant problem have changed recently.
Well, for the best, I hope.
Senator Kelly has been at the forefront of both sides of this issue for some time. I thought his point of view would be worthwhile, particularly within this crisis.
If you think that's appropriate.
So, what are you proposing, Mr. Stryker?
Stryker, clearly not comfortable with Kelly's request, begins to place surveillance photos of Xavier's mansion on the president's desk.
My people have gathered these surveillance photos from the mutant training facility in the Salem region of upstate New York.
Where did you get this information?
Interrogation of one of the Liberty Island terrorists.
Eric Lynch, you have access to him.
My group developed the technology that built his prison, when, I might add, the Defense Department couldn't find room in their budget.
He continues to hand the president photos. Senator Kelly finally looks at the photos. His face blanks.
This facility is a school.
Oh, sure it is.
Stryker throws down a series of black and white photos of the mansion. In them, a basketball court opens to reveal the X-Jet.
Now you ask yourselves, how could this have happened?
Stryker turns and glances at the damaged wall.
How could it not have?
The president stands up, takes a sip of his drink, sighs.
If we'd been allowed to do our jobs before this incident, don't misinterpret my goals, Senator. We just want to go in there, see what they're up to.
Stryker holds up a photo.
Oh, one last thing, Mr. President. For over a year, we've been tracking this mutant.
He hands the photo to McKenna, who looks up at Stryker in shock because
this photo was taken 3 months ago.
It is a surveillance photo of Nightcrawler. Exterior White House. Moments later, Stryker emerges to greet Ann Reynolds, his right hand in command. They walk through the outer hallway, which is being repaired from the attack.
Mr. Stryker.
Stryker and Ann stop and turn around to see Senator Kelly.
Oh, Senator Kelly. This is Ann Reynolds, my director of special projects.
My pleasure.
Kelly shakes Ann's hand tightly, a little too tightly, and for a little too long.
Listen, if you'd like to talk further about what you're planning, I'd be available to offer my assistance.
Thanks for the offer, Senator, but everything is already in place.
Stryker smiles eerily, pats him on the shoulder. As Stryker and Ann walk away, Senator Kelly rubs his fingers together. His eyes flash yellow. Interior, Xavier's main mansion, living room. Rogue sits on the couch next to Bobby and a few other kids watching the news. Bobby's holding her gloved hand. Behind them, the door opens. Rogue smiles and runs towards
Logan!
She throws her arms around him.
Hey, Rogue. Who's this?
Oh, this is Bobby. He's
her boyfriend.
They shake hands. Crackling ice and vapors rise from the handshake. Rogue rolls her eyes at the macho display.
They call me Iceman.
Logan isn't
Right.
impressed.
Where's the professor?
Welcome back.
Logan turns around to find Storm and Jean smiling at him. They're both carrying duffel bags. Logan focuses on Jean.
Thanks. It's good to be back. Hey, Jeannie.
Hi, Logan.
Logan and Jean smile at each other warmly. Rogue and Bobby plop back down on the couch, hiding knowing smiles. Storm awkwardly watches Logan and Jean share a moment. She backs up slowly, pointing.
I'm going to the plane. I'm going to get the plane ready. Bye.
She walks off. Logan turns back to Jean, smiling.
It is good to have you back.
How good?
He looks at her bags.
We won't be gone long.
But I just got here.
And you'll be here when we come home.
Find what you're looking for, Logan?
They both look up to see Cyclops entering the room. Logan turns back to Jean, staring directly at her.
More or less.
Cyclops moves next to them, puts a hand on Logan's shoulder.
And with such perfect timing. Tonight, you're the babysitter. In bed by 11, okay?
Rogue and Bobby look up, not happy to hear that. Logan watches them. Jean turns to wave goodbye.
He meant midnight.
11. Where's the professor?
Interior, Xavier's mansion, Cerebro, minutes later. Xavier sits at the console, adjusting the controls.
Logan, my repeated requests about smoking in the mansion notwithstanding, continue smoking that in here, and you will spend the rest of your days under the belief that you are a 6-year-old girl.
Reveal Logan standing in the entrance behind the professor, cigar in his mouth.
You do that?
I'll have Jean braid your hair.
Logan puts out the cigar with his palm and puts the rest in his shirt pocket for later.
How was your search? More questions than answers.
Logan steps forward onto the platform and the door closes. Xavier puts on the helmet as Cerebro hums to life. Logan looks around, sketchy.
You want me to leave?
No, just don't move.
The walls fall away with Cerebro effect. The Cerebro POV abruptly pulls straight down with stomach lurching speed, rushing through blackness with hints of light. In seconds, both Logan and Xavier are standing inside a giant image of the Earth rotating above them. Dotted across all continents are sparkling white and red lights, like stars fallen to Earth. The white lights far outweigh the red ones.
Those lights represent the whole of humanity, every living soul on every continent.
Suddenly, the white lights fade, leaving only the red ones.
And these are the mutants. Many of them don't even realize yet who they are. You see, we're not the only one. We're not as alone as you think.
Chuck, I found the base at Alkali Lake. There was nothing there.
Xavier's too focused on the lights, which have completely faded, leaving only a red line along the east coast.
Odd. This broken line represents the path of the mutant who attacked the president. I'm finding it hard to lock in on him.
Can you just increase the signal?
If I want to kill him, yes.
Cerebro zooms in closer, revealing a blinking red light in Boston. Latitude and longitude points are displayed.
It looks like he's finally stopped running.
Logan is angry. He has no interest in talking about this.
I need you to read my mind again.
Xavier closes his eyes. He has found what he needs. Suddenly, the Cerebro effect collapses on itself and we're back on the catwalk.
I'm afraid the results will be the same as before.
We had a deal.
Logan, the mind is not a box to be simply unlocked and opened. It's a beehive with a million separate compartments. I don't doubt that your amnesia and enhancements are connected, but using my telepathy is still far too risky.
Xavier puts the helmet down. Logan is more pissed off than disappointed.
I promise we'll talk more when I return. Scott and I are going to pay an old friend a visit.
Interior, plastic prison, Magneto's cell, day. The transparent plastic prison, dimly lit for the evening. Magneto's face is obscured by the book he is reading. T.H. White's the once and future king. The walkway extends across the chasm to his cell. A big, obnoxious guard by the name of Mitchell Lario enters. Magneto lowers the book to reveal bruises on his face.
Mr. Lorio, how long can we keep this up?
How long is your sentence?
Forever.
A series of cameras in the prison suddenly click off.
Not necessarily forever, Mr. Lynch. Just until I've got all that I need.
Stryker struts in like he owns the place.
Mr. Stryker, come to make sure your hard-earned dollars are still keeping me comfortable.
Stryker calmly sits at the table facing him. He tosses a small tube of yellow liquid to Lario. Magneto looks at the vial, genuine fear in his eyes. He tries to stand and Lario quickly forces him back down, pressing his face to the table. Stryker watches, amused. Lario bends Magneto's head down, and that's when we see it. A small circular scar on the back of his neck. Using a small pipette, Lario puts 2 drops of the yellow liquid on the back of Magneto's neck, right on the scar. Angle on the yellow liquid as it bubbles and proceeds to sink into Magneto's neck, forming a perfect circle. Magneto looks up, his eyes are wide and dilated, just as Nightcrawler's were in the White House. He seems to be in a daze, calm.
Now, Mr. Lynch, I'd like to have one final talk about the house that Xavier built and the machine called Cerebro.
Interior, X-Jet, New York airspace, dusk. Storm pilots the jet while Jean navigates. Both are in battle uniforms.
The mutant signal has finally settled in Boston. I'm sending his last known coordinates to you now. Once you land, Jean, you'll have to rely on your skills to track him.
Let's hope he cooperates.
Yes, for his sake. Good luck.
Xavier's transmission ends. Exterior, New York airspace, dusk. The jet passes over the Statue of Liberty. Workmen patch a hole blasted through the statue's forehead. The jet banks silently and disappears into the clouds. Interior, Federal Building, lobby, dusk. Anne Reynolds enters the building, passing by employees on their way out for the night. A hand grabs Anne's shoulder. Anne turns to see a young employee, Scott Crawford. He talks quietly, smiling as if he knows her.
Yes. Oh, not yet. I'm sorry, Mr. Crawford, but I forgot my badge. Is there any way you could swipe me in?
She smiles, flirting. So we're back to using the same last names? He swipes the card. The door opens and Anne enters. Interior, Federal Building. Outside Anne Reynolds' office. Later, Anne walks past a cleaning crew and presses her palm against a hand scanner. The door unlocks. Interior, Federal Building. Anne Reynolds' office. Anne shuts and locks the door behind her, then quickly heads to her desk and sits in front of a computer. Dolly around the computer monitor as we reach the other side, reveal that Anne has transformed into Mystique, just as beautiful and dangerous as we last saw her. On the monitor, voice print identification, please.
Reynolds, Anne.
On the monitor, access granted. Mystique smiles. She selects recent items from a menu and finds a folder labeled 143. Inside it, she opens a series of files, floor plans, linsure, augmentation, etc. Interior, Federal Building, lobby, same time. The real Anne Reynolds swipes her security badge through the door and walks down the hall towards her office. As Mystique continues to read the files, her smile fades. Federal Building. Anne presses her palm against the hand scanner. Anne Reynolds' office. The office door clicks. Mystique looks up, startles, as Anne Reynolds enters and walks to her desk. Nothing appears out of order. Mystique is gone. Anne looks up from her desk and gasps. A cleaning lady is in the corner of the room.
What are you doing in here?
Lo siento, la puerta estaba abierta.
The cleaning lady apologetically backs out of the room. Anne looks annoyed, then sits at her desk. Interior, Stryker Corp, outside Anne's office. As Mystique, the cleaning lady, walks down the hall, she passes the identical cleaning lady who stares, dumbfounded. Exterior, Boston Harbor, night. The X-Jet lies just under the surface of the water. Boom up to reveal the Boston skyline. Title card, Boston. Exterior, Boston Street, City Square, night. Storm and Jean in civilian clothes enter a city square. The air is tense. People have their eyes glued to TV sets in bars and restaurants, watching news reports, debates. Police officers stand on almost every corner.
These are the coordinates.
Storm turns, realizing Jean isn't next to her.
Jean.
Jean is a few feet back, angrily staring at a graffiti-covered wall surrounded an abandoned church. On the wall are the words, "Clean the gene pool, kill mutant scum." Jean stares at it intensely, concentrating.
Jean, come on, let us go.
No, he's in here.
As they walk up the stairs, the wall begins to vibrate and the graffiti crumbles to dust. Exterior, abandoned church. Storm and Jean stand in front of the two massive wooden doors chained shut. A sign reads, "Condemned City of Boston." Jean concentrates. The chain quickly snaps off. Abandoned church. The door swings open from a gust of wind summoned by Storm. Pigeons fly from the rafters as they enter the dark church. They head down the aisle. Statues of saints line the walls. As they walk further in, a statue of the shadows seems to turn, watching them. Then a demonic voice coming from behind the altar stops them in their tracks.
Steigen Sie aus!
Bam! A puff of smoke from the altar, and the voice speaks again from a chorus balcony behind them.
Ich bin ein Minion des Typhus.
We are not here to hurt you. We just want to talk.
Bam! Smoke from the balcony. The voice now speaks from the rafters above, a dark figure climbing in the beams.
Ich bin ein Tormentor vom Verdammten.
He's a teleporter. No wonder the professor had trouble locking onto him.
Jean rolls her eyes, definitely not impressed.
Ich bin ein Gebrochen.
Are you bored yet?
Oh, yeah.
Storm concentrates, lightning twists and coils up the columns and strikes the rafter, sending the figure falling. Bamf! The figure disappears in a cloud of smoke. Jean holds up a hand and bamf! He reappears, frozen in midair, held by Jean's power. Nightcrawler futilely kicks and squirms.
You have him?
Nightcrawler tries to teleport, but only manages to create weak puffs of smoke.
He's not going anywhere. Are you?
Bitte, please, don't kill me. I never intended to harm anyone.
Well, I wonder how people got that impression. What is your name?
Nightcrawler eyes them nervously.
Kurt Wagner.
Interior, church tower. Nightcrawler has turned a small room inside the church's tower into a home. Old Bibles, hymnals, and other religious objects are scattered next to blankets and food. He's sitting on the ground, nervously clutching a rosary. Jean and Storm are crouched down next to him. Pan across a series of old circus posters with images of Kurt, advertised as the incredible Nightcrawler.
I could see it all happening, but I couldn't stop myself. It was someone else, like a bad dream. I fear he has left me. I even found a mark. Here, look.
He pulls back his shirt to show them the back of his neck. They look close to see a circular scar just like Magneto's. Interior, Xavier's mansion, hallway, night. Wearing night clothes, Logan wanders the mansion into Xavier's mansion, kitchen, a sprawling kitchen. He approaches the refrigerator, pulls out a beer, and wanders into the living room, the recreation area, where a 12-year-old boy with large glasses named Jones sits on the couch watching TV. Logan settles down into a large leather chair and watches the television. Slowly, his eye is drawn towards the boy. Whenever Jones blinks his eyes, the remote control lights up and the channel changes. And Jones is blinking his eyes a lot. Logan laughs quietly to himself.
Can't sleep?
How can you tell?
Because you're awake.
Right. How about you?
I don't sleep.
Logan takes a sip of beer. Jones continues blinking. The TV changes channels.
Lots of times when Mr. Cyclops can't sleep, he practices in the danger room. He goes all the way to level 8.
Level 8.
The boy smiles. Xavier's mansion, underground hallway. Minutes later, deep below the surface level of the mansion, Logan approaches a large metal door. It opens. Interior, Xavier's mansion, danger room. Blackness. Save for the light pouring from the hallway, the door closes behind him. A shaft of light appears from above as an illuminated control panel rises from the floor in the center of the room. Logan walks toward it. The control panel scale is from 1 to 10. Logan smiles and presses 9. Another display appears. Real danger or simulated danger. Logan smirks. Is there any question? He presses real danger, and the panel slides down and disappears under the floor. King, king, king! One by one, tall vertical light panels along the walls illuminate the massive circular room. Logan turns, staring in awe. The control booth, attached to a long arm that bisects the room near the ceiling, begins to spin. Suddenly, the floor panels begin to drop and raise like giant columns, knocking Logan to the ground. Interior, plastic prison, security checkpoint. Minutes later, Xavier, now in a plastic wheelchair, enters the security area. Cyclops follows.
Scott, you can wait here. I'll be out in a few minutes.
Xavier approaches a large circular door. 2 guards stand next to it. Cyclops glances towards Mitchell Lario, who smiles eerily at him.
Hey.
Hey.
Plastic prison. Xavier wheels down the long plastic tube and enters his plastic prison, Magneto's cell. Magneto faces away from Xavier, placing chess pieces back on his plastic board.
Charles Xavier, to what do I owe the pleasure?
There's been an assassination attempt on the president, Eric. What do you know about it?
Nothing. You shouldn't even have to ask.
Magneto turns towards him, revealing bruises. Xavier is horrified.
What's happened to you?
I've had frequent visits from William Stryker.
Xavier reacts. It's clear that they both know him.
William Stryker?
His son Jason was once a student of yours, wasn't he?
Yes. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to help him. Not in the way his father wanted me to.
Plastic prison. Security checkpoint. Same time. Lario glares at Cyclops. A woman enters the room. It's Anne Reynolds. She approaches Cyclops and looks closely at him. Interior, plastic prison, Magneto's cell.
And now you think taking in the Wolverine will make up for your failure with Stryker's son.
Xavier doesn't respond.
You haven't told him about his past, have you?
His mind is still too fragile.
Is it? Or are you afraid you will lose him to the truth?
There is no truth in vengeance.
Are you so sure?
Magneto sighs deeply. He looks away from Xavier. Push in on Xavier, concentrating, reading Magneto's mind. His demeanor suddenly changes. He's shocked.
What have you done, Eric?
I'm sorry, Charles. I couldn't help it.
What have you told him?
Magneto reaches around and instinctively rubs the scar on his neck.
Everything.
Xavier sits back, horrified. Magneto looks away. The information runs through Xavier's mind.
Scott!
Interior, plastic prison, security checkpoint.
What's going on?
Anne Reynolds holds up a taser pistol and aims, electrically blasts him. He collapses to the ground and nods to Lario. Plastic prison, Magneto cell, same time. Xavier panics. He looks around. The catwalk is being retracted from the cell. The air suddenly gets thicker, and Xavier starts to cough.
What's happening?
Magneto stares at Xavier in fear. His eyes are bloodshot. He starts to choke because the room is filling up with gas. They both struggle, cough, and finally pass out. Xavier's mansion, living room, same time. Jones sits on the couch laughing to himself. He blinks, and the TV changes channels again. Behind him, blurry in the background, a shape, a figure, slowly descends from the ceiling and quietly sets on the ground. It slowly rises to its full height, and 2 glowing red eyes appear. Jones sees the reflection of the eyes on the TV screen. He slowly and nervously turns around to see a man staring at him, dressed in black, form-fitting battle gear. His face is completely covered, 2 glowing goggles over his eyes. At first glance, he could easily pass for one of the X-Men in uniform. Eerily, he waves to Jones. Jones gets off his couch and walks towards him. Jones stops and looks up. A rope is dangling from the open skylight. The man doesn't move. He looks at Jones curiously. He methodically holds up a gun and aims it directly at the young mutant's head. The boy takes a step back when, bang, Jones falls to the floor. Interior, Xavier's mansion. Danger room, same time. Logan tries desperately to climb up the growing and receding platforms. He jumps, finally on top, snicked. The platform drops and simultaneously fires a projectile towards him. He dives, the floor drops again. Xavier's mansion, upstairs hallway. A dozen soldiers rush up both staircases into the upstairs hallway, then quickly disperse. 2 soldiers entering the room. Xavier's mansion, boy's bedroom. Artie, Peter Rasputin, and another boy are asleep in bunk beds. The door slowly creaks open, revealing 2 soldiers. They quietly creep into the room, rifles raised. They take another step and the floor creaks. The soldiers stop, waiting, beat. They start moving again, close on Artie, lying on his side, his back to the soldiers, but his eyes are open. He can hear them approaching from behind. The soldiers begin moving toward the beds. Artie is nervous. He closes his eyes tight. The air around him ripples, and he becomes transparent. Not entirely invisible, but only a faint image of himself, a shimmer. One of the soldiers lifts his rifle. A red laser appears on the back of one of the still sleeping boys. Whoosh! The faint blur of Artie runs past the soldiers. They turn and try to aim. They fire. A dart sticks harmlessly into the wall. Artie reaches the other side of the room. He rematerializes, reaches up and pulls an emergency switch. An alarm blares. Warning lights flash. Artie cowers from the soldiers as they prepare to shoot again. Suddenly, a figure rises up behind them. They spin around and look up. It's Peter Rasputin, aka Colossus, 6.5 feet of hard muscle towering over both of them. He pulls his arm back to punch, and his arm is quickly covered in organic-looking armor. Xavier's mansion, upstairs window, smash! The outside wall explodes. The 2 soldiers are thrown through the hole and hit the ground hard. From the hole in the wall, Colossus looks down at them. The soldiers are moaning, covered in rubble. Above Xavier's mansion, moments later, wider on the mansion as 6 helicopters approach. A few land while others begin hovering over the mansion. 6 more soldiers rappel from a chopper towards the large window upstairs. Xavier's mansion, bedroom, smash! The 6 soldiers burst through the window, guns raised. They land and immediately pursue 3 boys who are running for the door. One of the boys stops and turns to face them. A soldier fires and a bolt of electricity shoots from his rifle into the boy's chest. Electricity sparks through his body. The boy holds up his hand, smiles, and shoots the electricity back at the soldier, who screams as it courses through his body. He collapses. Another soldier quickly draws a pistol and fires. A dart lodges into the boy's neck, and he falls to the ground. Interior, Xavier's mansion, danger room, same time. Logan is covered in sweat. A small gash in his arms begin to heal. He leaps from one raised column to another, dodging and slicing at projectiles fired from the walls. Logan jumps to the ground and the floor under his feet lifts high into the air, positioning him directly in front of an oncoming projectile. It hits him. He's thrown from the column and lands on the back hard. The wind knocked out. He sits up, dazed, and the control room stops spinning. The columns lower back into the floor. The room falls, silent, beat. The entire room shakes with the sound of an explosion. Logan cranes his neck upwards, listening, realizing. These are not the sounds of the danger room. He bolts. Xavier's mansion, upstairs hallway. A helicopter rumbles outside, shining a spotlight into the window. Smash! Small canisters break the windows and hit the floor, filling the halls with tear gas. Screaming children run from their rooms. Bobby and Pyro round a corner, running against the crowd. Several children are on the ground, overcome by fumes. Bobby grabs a panicked, coughing Colossus who is carrying an unconscious girl in his arms.
Peter, where's Rogue?
I don't know, but we have to get the kids out of here.
Bobby and Pyro leave Colossus behind. They continue running against the swarm of terrified students.
Drake!
Bobby ignores him, his mind focused on finding Rogue. Xavier's mansion, foyer. A soldier has a young girl in a bathrobe pinned to the ground. He reaches for a pistol and points it at her. She tries crawling away and he grabs her ankle. Suddenly, the girl stops moving. She goes limp. Her leg collapses in on itself. So does the rest of her body. The soldier turns around to see the girl running out the door. He looks down and realizes he's holding nothing but her shedded skin. Xavier's mansion, downstairs hallway. Kitty Pryde ushers children into a secret passage. She looks over her shoulder to see 3 soldiers coming up to them fast, guns raised. Kitty quickly shuts the secret passage and runs, leading the soldiers away. She phases through a wall just as they fire, darts harmlessly lodging into the paneling. Xavier's mansion, rec room, the other side of the wall. Kitty emerges from the other side of the wall and runs into a rec room. She keeps running and phases through the billiard table, then through the fireplace. Xavier's mansion, into the dining room and phases right through a soldier. He jolts, disoriented, as she passes through him. She's heading towards the far wall. The soldier spins and aims. Kitty is almost out of the house, just a few more feet. The soldier fires his rifle, taser. A bolt of electricity streams and slams into Kitty's back. She screams and slams into the wall, falling to the ground, convulsing. Xavier's mansion, elevator entrance. The elevator opens and Logan walks out, claws already extended. The hall is filled with smoke, fire, tear gas. Screams echo upstairs. It's a babysitter's worst nightmare. Enraged, Logan runs toward the cries. Rogue runs down a gas-filled hallway and spots a younger girl crouched in a doorway, crying, on the verge of passing out from the fumes. Rogue runs to her.
On, honey.
She grabs the girl's hand and they run to the end of the corridor. Rogue presses her hand against a section of the wall and a door slides open, revealing a lit staircase leading downward.
Just like Stone taught us, okay?
The girl nods. Rogue pushes the panel again and the door slides shut. Rogue turns around to see Bobby and Pyro at the far end, running towards her as fast as they can.
Bobby!
She runs to meet him in the middle when a soldier emerges from a room only a few feet behind her.
Rogue, run!
Rogue runs faster towards Bobby, the soldier in hot pursuit. Bobby and Pyro watch, too scared to move. The soldier stops and aims, the red laser on Rogue's neck. Snicked! Crunch! The soldier gasps. He looks down to see Logan's claws popping from the center of his chest. Logan stands behind him, his eyes filled with fury of a Wolverine. Logan pulls his claws out and the soldier slips to the floor, dead. Rogue watches, terrified. Logan wipes blood from his face.
Let's go.
Xavier's mansion, escape tunnel, same time. A group of 12 kids run through a tunnel, looking back to see if they're being followed. Finally, they reach the end of the tunnel and enter the forest. The kids flee into the forest. Xavier's mansion, downstairs hallway. Rogue, Bobby, Pyro, Logan head down the stairs and around a corner. Pyro opens up the secret passage and they head inside. Logan suddenly stops, listening to troops approach.
Keep going.
Logan!
He stares at her, the animalistic gleam still in his eye. No arguing. The passage door shuts. Xavier's mansion, downstairs hallway. Logan turns around and snicked, extends his claws. Suddenly, through the smoke, a dozen red lasers are focused on Logan's head and body. A dozen soldiers surround Logan in a semicircle. Logan is about to cut into them when...
Wolverine.
A man steps into the hall, emerging through the smoke. The soldiers part to let him pass. He is... William Stryker, walking in with a cocky grin and a self-assured strut. Logan instinctively freezes.
How long has it been?
Stryker stops and stands a few feet from Logan.
15 years, and you haven't changed a bit. Me, on the other hand, nature.
He looks at Stryker, searching his aged face. It triggers a vague memory, involuntary. Logan's claws slowly retract. But Stryker just smiles. Xavier's mansion, secret passage. Rogue watches Logan's face off with Stryker from the partially opened doorway.
They're going to kill him! Do something!
Pyro is back in the way.
Let's go.
Do something!
Bobby glances at both of them, torn. She quickly rips off her gloves and grabs his bare arm. Her breath suddenly turns cold, the crack of ice in her knuckles as she absorbs Bobby's power. Bobby freezes in pain, his veins bulging. Pyro watches, impressed. Xavier's mansion. Stryker moves closer to Logan.
I must admit, this is the last place I thought I'd ever see you, Wolverine. I didn't realize Xavier was taking in animals.
Logan looks at him hard.
Who are you?
Well, don't you remember?
Angle on Logan, eyes wide, searching for recognition. Suddenly, the space between Logan and Stryker starts to fade as a thin wall of white fog forms in the room. Interior, Xavier's mansion's secret passage. Rogue is grimacing in her pain. Her arm up is now covered in a crystal frost. Finally, she squeezes her hand into a fist. Xavier's mansion hallway. The wall of thick white smoke congeals. Stryker steps forward, reaches up, and puts a finger to the wall of ice that now separates him from Logan. He turns, snaps his fingers, and steps back. A hail of gunfire lets loose. A huge hole is blown in the ice wall. The mist clears. Wolverine is gone. Stryker grins, amused. Xavier's mansion, escape tunnel. Logan, Pyro, Bobby, and Rogue run down a dimly lit tunnel.
Was that?
Boom! An explosion above. They stop and listen, terrified.
I'm going back.
Rogue grabs
No, Logan. We need you.
This stops him dead in his tracks. What does she mean? Well, with a look of resignation, he continues running. Logan, Rogue, Bobby, and Pyro come up from the tunnel into a large garage. The room lights turn on. They gawk at a dozen exotic and expensive cars. They pile into a small sports car close to the garage door. Sports car.
This is Cyclops' car.
Oh, yeah?
Snicked! One claw shoots out, piercing the ignition with a quick twist. The car starts and he hits the gas. Garage. The garage door opens and the garage speeds away. Sports car. Rogue is in the passenger seat staring out the window. Whatever she's feeling, she's hiding it well. Pyro reaches up, starts fiddling with the radio.
What are you doing? Well?
Pyro hits a button and loud CB radio static blasts through the speakers. They cringe. It only gets louder when Rogue tries to shut it off. The radio faceplate finally snaps off in Pyro's hands and the screeching noise stops. Logan grips the wheel, clearly annoyed. Pyro looks at the faceplate closely. It looks like a sleek communication device, a high-tech cell phone.
I don't think this is the radio.
Rogue grabs it from him. Logan watches.
Can you work that thing?
I can try.
So where are we going?
Storm and Jean are in Boston. We'll head that way.
My folks live in Boston.
Logan nods. Rogue stares at the blood on Logan's hands. They make eye contact.
Don't worry. It's not mine.
Roadway, night. The car drives off into the distance. Xavier's mansion, underground hallway. The elevator door opens, revealing Stryker and two soldiers, and he exits. Another soldier approaches them.
Sir, we managed to capture 8, but the other escaped through some tunnels that weren't in the schematics.
Stryker doesn't seem bothered.
8 is enough.
Stryker stops in front of the door to Cerebro. Two soldiers attach a large device that resembles the jaws of life. Suddenly, its massive arms clamp onto the door and begin to stretch. It strains at first, but the door is quickly ripped open. Stryker smiles, pleased. Cerebro. Stryker walks down the long platform to the center of the room. He glides a finger across the control panel as he checks for dust. He smiles, definitely impressed, then turns to leave.
Gentlemen, take what we need.
Interior, rural bar, night. Mitchell Lario sits at the bar, 4 empty mugs in front of him. He's still in uniform, tie undone, shirt hanging open. He watches the television where a debate wages.
The Registration Act provides a sense of security similar to Megan's Law, a list of potentially dangerous individuals living in our communities.
Dr. McCoy, a response.
That is a database of known felons, Mr. Shaw, not innocent people who might commit a crime. What people seem to forget is that if it weren't for evolution, we'd all be sitting in trees picking bugs from each other's hair.
Hey, turn that shit off, Lou.
Lou, the bartender, wipes a glass and turns off the TV.
Got a lot on your mind?
Lario turns, finding the most beautiful woman ever to come within 10 feet of him, sitting on a nearby stool.
Mr. Lario.
Lario smiles blearily. He tries to stutter a response.
Hey.
Grace.
Lario's apartment, night. The door swings open and Lario and Grace stumble in, kissing passionately.
I never hooked up with anyone like you before.
I know.
She throws him onto the couch and rubs a finger on his face.
Got any beer?
Down his chins.
Uh,
And over his vast stomach.
Of course you do.
Lario's apartment kitchen. Grace pulls 2 bottles from the fridge.
Sorry about the mess, and I don't have a bed.
It's okay.
She drops 2 small pills into one of the bottles.
We won't need one.
Lario's apartment. Grace steps over some pizza boxes and hands the beer to Lario. He licks his lips and smiles grotesquely.
Bottoms up.
He swills away. She watches, smiling.
I certainly hope so.
Lario lays face down on the couch, snoring, his large boxer-clad ass in the air. Grace sits on the arm of the couch. Removing a small case from her purse, she unzips it, revealing a syringe filled with metallic liquid. She takes it out, inspects it, and squirts a little. In a flash, Grace shifts and becomes Mystique. She smiles. Interior, Stryker's base, main corridor. Stryker walks down a hall behind him. A small, dark creature follows him in the shadows. They walk past an open door. Inside, Anne Reynolds is tending to an unconscious Cyclops, fastening a metal band over his eyes. Stryker nods to her and keeps walking. Stryker and the creature turn a corner and open a large fortified door. Inside, Xavier's cell. Xavier is bound to a common wheelchair. A high-tech band is wrapped around his head. The room is dark, cramped, only a single door in front of him. Xavier closes his eyes and tries to focus, using his power to reach out when the headband buzzes and Xavier jolts as sharp pain fills his skull. Chuckling off screen, Xavier opens his eyes to see.
I just had to see that work for myself. We call it the neural inhibitor. The more you think, the more it hurts.
William Stryker smiles and strolls into the cell, followed by Toad. Xavier's shocked. Stryker touches his head.
And he keeps you out of here.
William.
Please, Xavier, don't get up.
Toad slowly creeps around the room.
I'm sorry we couldn't find you more comfortable quarters. My home's going through some renovations. So is yours.
What have you done with Scott?
Oh, well, he's here with some of your students.
There's no need to involve them.
I've seen your school, Professor, with its combat training rooms and high-tech defense systems. What on earth are you teaching these creatures?
It takes every bit of Xavier's strength just to form a coherent thought.
To survive. To peacefully coexist in a world that fears them.
Oh, but it doesn't look very peaceful to me, Xavier. Some species can never coexist. I learned that from you.
You wanted me to cure your son, William, but mutation is not a disease.
You're lying, Xavier. You were more afraid of him than I was.
Toad starts moving towards Xavier, peering at him, a hint of recognition, getting closer and closer to Xavier's face.
No. Just 1 year after Jason returned from your school, my wife tormented by constant contact with him, she took a power drill to her left temple in an attempt to bore out the images he was projecting onto her mind. My boy, the great illusionist.
Toad is inches from Xavier's face. Stryker kneels, removes a vial of yellow liquid from his pocket, pulls out a pipette, which carefully measures and dispenses a drop onto the circular scar on Toad's neck.
Step back.
Toad does as he's told. Horror crosses Xavier's face.
You You arranged the attack on the president.
And you didn't even have to read my mind. You know, I've been working with mutants as long as you have, Xavier, and in all my years of research, the most frustrating thing that I learned is that nobody seems to know how many even exist or how to find them. Except you.
He holds up a vial.
Unfortunately, this little potion won't work on you, will it?
Stryker backs up and puts the vial back into his pocket.
No. You are too powerful for that. Instead, how about we go right back into the source?
He opens the door behind him, revealing a grotesque shell of a man, shriveled, emaciated, sitting in a wheelchair. Syringes and tubes run from his head and into clear containers on the back of his chair, continuously collecting the yellow fluid from his spinal column. A guard named Lyman wheels the man into the room. We realize Stryker's potion isn't a drug, but a chemical extracted from the unfortunate person in front of us.
Allow me to introduce you to Mutant 143.
Xavier looks at Mutant 143's face, one bright blue eye and one bright green eye, and a giant scar running across his forehead.
My God, William, this is your son! What have you done to him?
Stryker looks at Mutant 143, shaking his head.
My son is dead.
They exit.
Just like the rest of you.
He slams the door shut, leaving Mutant 143 to stare at and into Charles Xavier. Exterior, Drake House. The sports car is parked in the driveway of an average suburban home. At the door, the group stands on the porch, still in their night clothes. Bobby turns a key, then looks at Pyro.
Don't burn anything.
Pyro shakes his head in disbelief. Interior, Drake House, Bobby's room. Rogue slips out of her nightgown. Even though she's alone, she still seems uncomfortable with being so exposed. The door opens and Bobby walks in with a shirt. He averts his eyes. Even Bobby hasn't seen this much of her.
I got one of my mom's shirts, some new gloves too.
You don't have to be so shy.
Bobby grins and tosses her the clothes. Drake House, Ronnie's room. Logan and Pyro finish putting on t-shirts. Pyro notices some family photographs in silver frames. Bobby with his all-American family, mom, dad, little brother Ronnie. He moves his finger over the photos, eyes full of envy. Living room. Pyro is sprawled out on the couch, asleep. Rogue flips channels, leaning against Bobby. They land on MTV. Kitchen. Exiting a bathroom, Logan enters the kitchen and heads straight for the fridge. He grabs a beer. As he shuts the door, a house cat leaps onto the counter. Startled, Logan jumps and sneaked. The claws shoot out, but the cat doesn't run away. It approaches Logan, trying to lick his metal claws. He smiles. The back door opens, revealing Stephen and Madeline Drake with teenage son Ronnie. They are carrying shopping bags. Logan quickly retracts his claws. They see him and freeze in fear.
Who the hell are you?
Logan freezes, still holding the beer. Hearing his parents, Bobby and Rogue, come running into the room.
Bobby!
Aren't you supposed to be in school? Who are these people?
Mom, Dad, this is Professor Logan.
They look up at Logan, shocked. He smiles awkwardly.
Can I talk to you about something?
Interior, plastic prison, security checkpoint. Two guards stand in the room by the door to the catwalk. Lario enters carrying a tray of food.
What's that on your face, Mitch?
Satisfaction.
The guard grimaces at the thought of it and opens the door.
You're clear.
Magneto angrily paces back and forth, thinking about Charles. He stops and looks at Lario curiously.
Have a nice sleep, Lencher.
Lario enters and puts the food on the table. His smile becomes a scowl when he sees Magneto staring at him.
There's something different about you, Mr. Lorio.
Yeah, I was actually having a good day.
Magneto.
No, it's not that.
Sit down. You know the drill.
No.
Look, you sit your ass down, or I'll...
Magneto holds up a hand. Lario freezes and drops the club.
Wonder what it could be.
Lario is slowly lifted off his feet, hovering a few inches above the ground, terrified.
What's happening?
Ah, that's it.
Magneto slashes his hand in a sharp gesture, and a fine mist of blood bursts from Lario's entire body.
Too much iron in your blood.
The red cloud falls away, leaving the ultrafine particles of metal hovering in the air. Magneto squeezes his hand into a fist, and the metal compresses into 3 sized balls, marble-sized. Drops of blood ooze from each. They begin to move, orbiting over Magneto's palm.
Mr. Lorio, never trust a beautiful woman, especially one that is interested in you.
Lorio slumps to the ground. The balls smash through the plastic wall. Alarms ring. Faster than the eye can see, the balls whiz through the cell, shattering the walls and security cameras. The cage holding the world's most dangerous mutant swiftly falls apart. Plastic prison security checkpoint. The alarm blares. Lights flash. Guards panic. Guard 1 hits a button and the catwalk begins to retract from Magneto's cell. As it retracts, the clear plastic door slides down the entrance. Plastic prison. Magneto watches the catwalk pull away, revealing the chasm below. He smiles. One of the balls glides to his feet and flattens to become a large, thin silver disc. He steps on top of it, hovering over the chasm. As the other 2 balls orbit around him, Magneto floats across the abyss towards the plastic door on the other side. The guards behind it run for their lives. Magneto eyes narrowly. The 2 balls orbiting around him suddenly shoot forward and shatter the door. Drake House, living room. The Drake family sits across from Logan and the X-Kids. Ronnie stares at the floor, unable to look at his brother. It's silent. A clock ticks. Finally,
So, when did you first know that you were a,
Madeline can't bring herself to use the word.
A mutant?
She doesn't like hearing it.
You have to understand, we thought that Bobby was going to a school for the gifted.
Bobby is gifted.
We know that. We just didn't realize that he was...
we still love you, Bobby. It's just that the mutant problem is very complicated.
What mutant problem?
And what are you a professor of, Mr. Logan?
Art. And it's just Logan.
The air thick with tension, Rogue tries to lighten the mood.
You should see what Bobby can do.
The Drakes look at Bobby. He reaches across the table and they flinch, pulling back. Bobby smiles. He takes Logan's beer bottle. He lifts it up, holding it over the family cat, starts to pour the beer out.
Hey.
And just before it hits the cat, the stream of beer freezes solid. The cat lifts up and gently licks it. Steve is amused, almost proud. Madeline is not amused. Neither is Ronnie.
I can do a lot more than that.
Ronnie gets up and storms upstairs.
Ronnie?
On the balcony above the living room, we see him storm towards his room. The door slams shut, reading, Ronnie's room, stay the fuck out. Downstairs, Madeline is flustered. Drake House, Ronnie's room. Ronnie stares at Logan's bloody t-shirt on the floor. The TV blares in the background. On television, a reporter stands at a police barricade.
In the wake of the assassination attempt on President McKenna, just weeks before his State of the Union address, there are unconfirmed reports of a raid on an underground mutant organization based in Westchester, New York.
Ronnie suddenly turns his attention to the television.
Authorities refuse to comment, but the surrounding area has been evacuated, and a manhunt for several fugitives from the facility is underway.
Ronnie quietly thinks, looks at Logan's bloody shirt, and picks up the phone. Drake House, living room. Logan walks back from the kitchen with a fresh beer. He sits down next to Rogue.
Oh God, this is all my fault.
Actually, they've discovered that males are the ones who carry mutant genes and pass them on.
Rogue jab Pyro in her with her elbow.
Ow.
And you're all gifted.
They nod. Madeline tries to put on a happy face.
Have you tried not to be a mutant?
Bobby sighs just as the communication device beeps. The others stare at Rogue and pulls it from her pocket. Logan grabs it and gets up.
It's probably for me.
Logan exits through the sliding glass doors. Exterior, Drake House, backyard. Logan turns from the comm device on.
Professor.
Logan, thank God.
Logan's face lights up. X-Jet, same time. Storm and Jean are in the cockpit. Nightcrawler is behind them, gawking out the window.
We couldn't reach anyone at the mansion.
No one's left, Jean. Soldiers came and they took some of the kids. I'll explain when you pick us up.
We also haven't been able to locate the professor or Scott.
Drake House, backyard. Logan angrily paces back and forth.
We're in Boston with Bobby Drake's family.
Thanks. We are on our way.
And Storm?
Logan looks toward the family room.
Make it fast.
He shuts the device off and steps toward the sliding glass doors. Logan slides them open and stops, snipping. He slides the doors closed again and sees it, the reflection of people creeping up behind him. Logan bolts inside. Drake House. Logan bursts inside. The family looks up at him, startled.
We have to go now.
Why?
No.
The kids look at him, apprehensive. He's serious. Front porch. Logan, Pyro, Bobby, and Rogue exit in a hurry.
Logan, what's going on?
Just as they step out onto the front porch, click! 2 cops step from each side of the porch and cock their guns, both pointed towards Logan and the kids. Snicked! Logan's claws come out. They freeze, seeing a dozen cops hovering the cul-de-sac in front of the house.
Ronnie.
Ronnie's room. Ronnie stares out the window at the situation. Front porch.
Get down on the ground. We don't want any trouble.
The cops silently advance towards them.
What's going on here?
Bobby and Rogue are scared to death. Pyro pensively flicks his lighter open and closed. Open and closed.
Put down the knives slowly.
This is just a misunderstanding.
In the window, Bobby's mother and father stand, frozen, staring out of the window. Bobby looks at them, but there's nothing they can do.
Drop the knives and put your palms on the ground now.
You don't understand.
He quickly turns. Bang! Logan is shot in the head and he goes down. Rogue screams. The kids stare, devastated. Pyro looks back at the officer, whose gun is still smoking. The other cops step forward. Throughout the neighborhood, people gather onto the scene. On the porch, the kids see 3 cops advancing from side, guns raised. Rogue and Bobby slowly start to kneel, hands behind their heads, but not Pyro. He remains standing. He flicks his lighter faster and faster.
We don't want to hurt you, kid.
You know all those dangerous mutants you hear about on the news?
Rogue and Bobby look at Pyro on the ground. Logan's face starts to heal.
I'm the worst one.
Pyro lowers his head and flicks the lighter. A flame hovers above his palm, then quickly shoots into the streams of fire. One to the right, one to the left, one racing behind him, through the house, out the back door, blasting over cops in the backyard, outside the columns of fire. We pan across the cops' faces, shocked, outgunned. They dive for cover, running from the expanding flames. Close on, Pyro, as he narrows his eyes, streaks of flames sneak underneath 4 cop cars toward the gas pipes. From high above, columns of fire rush outward in every direction, covering the cars, burning the ground, igniting trees. The cops duck, hair singed. Boom! The cars explode. 2 overturn. 2 are thrown skyward. Push in on Pyro. Sweating hard, living the moment. He will never be the same again. Angle on Logan on the ground. The bullet dislodges itself from the wound and falls to the ground. Logan opens his eyes as his flesh begins to heal. Suddenly, a cop sees a white pellet hit the ground. It's quickly followed by another and another. It's a hailstorm, followed by wind and rain. Pyro's flames are quickly extinguished. Logan stands up. Angle on Rogue, Pyro, Logan, and Bobby watching the X-Jet descend from dark clouds. It hovers above the yard. The ramp lowers, revealing Storm, eyes white.
Get in!
While the cops are pinned down by the weather, Logan and the kids escape through the hall. The ramp raises. X-Jet. Logan and the kids quickly strap themselves into seats. Storm heads to the cockpit. In the cockpit, Jean turns and sees Logan. She smiles. He winks. Nightcrawler pops up from behind a chair. The kids scream.
Guten Morgen.
Guten Abend. Who the hell are you?
Kurt Wagner, but in the Munich circus, I was known as the incredible Nightcrawler.
Save it. Storm?
We are out of here.
Storm pulls on the stick and they lift off. Suburban street, courtyard. Cops and residents watch in awe as the jet roars away.
Patch me through the State Department.
Interior, Stryker's base. Later that day, Xavier and Mutant 143 stare deeply into each other's eyes. Xavier's neural inhibitor buzzes wildly. Something happening in his mind. He grits his teeth, bearing the pain. Then 143 moves. His hand slowly reaches for Xavier's throat as if to choke him. The professor doesn't move. He continues to stare deep into 143's blue and green eyes. The inhibitor continues to buzz. Xavier grips his chair, straining.
A little closer.
Mutant 143 tenderly lifts the inhibitor from Xavier's head. Both Xavier and 143 exhale with relief. The pain now gone.
Thank you, Jason.
Xavier reaches up and caresses 143's cheek, releasing him. 143 relaxes, his face once again a blank stare. Stryker's base, outside Xavier's cell. Two soldiers, Lyman and Moss, stand outside Xavier's cell.
Mr. Lyman.
Lyman cocks his head, listening. His eyes fall into a trance.
Dave, you all right?
Would you please open the door, Mr. Lyman?
Moss suddenly falls into the same trance. He stands, frozen. Lyman turns and slides the security card through the slot. The door slides open, revealing Xavier on the other side.
Tell me, what is the quickest way out of here?
The helicopter.
And can either of you fly a helicopter?
No.
Oh.
Xavier smiles at Lyman.
You'll learn.
As if sleepwalking, Lyman steps behind Xavier's wheelchair and begins to push him into the hall. Moss stares at the wall, frozen. Airspace, night. The X-Jet speeds through the sky. Storm and Jean are at the controls. The others sit in the rear, exhausted. Bobby glares at Pyro, who is flicking his lighter on and off, thinking. Nightcrawler is nervously thumbing his rosary. Pyro looks up and smiles at Bobby.
You think you're funny? Let's go set fire to your house next time.
Too late.
You almost killed those cops, Bobby.
So? Logan would have if he hadn't gotten shot in the head.
Logan stares at the cockpit. Jean turns around and looks at him. He gets up and heads toward the front.
How far are we?
We're coming up on the mansion now.
A monitor suddenly displays two fast-moving red blips.
Two signals, coming in fast.
Airspace, two F-16 fighters roar through the clouds, coming up behind the X-Jet. They each fire a missile. X-Jet, the kids are wide-eyed and alarmed.
Who the hell are these guys?
Everybody hang on!
Airspace, the X-Jet banks hard. The barrels roll, just barely dodging the exploding missiles. The fighter jets are still on their tail. X-Jet, the kids are trying not to panic. Nightcrawler climbs into the tight space behind the chair and makes the sign of cross. Pyro starts to sweat hard.
Don't we have any weapons in this heap?
Jean glances over to Storm. Storm nods. Her eyes burn white. Rumbling, dark clouds begin to form in front of the X-Jet. Lightning flashes. They head straight into the eye of the growing storm. The F-16's right behind them. Storm cloud. Wispy clouds begin to swirl faster, faster, twisting into long, thin funnels. One forms in another until the sky is filled with a dozen roaring tornadoes. They writhe like giant serpents, allowing the X-Jet to pass between them. The F-16s aren't as lucky. They dart and weave, trying to avoid Storm's wrath. F-16. The fighter pilot has a lock on the X-Jet. He's about to pull the trigger when, boom, two tornadoes slam into the F-16 from above and below. It's yanked up and hurled across the sky, tumbling like a toy. The pilot ejects. The remaining fighter skillfully swerves around the funnel clouds, still in pursuit. X-Jet. Jean and Logan look at the beeping radar screen. Then, nervously, it's a Storm. Push in on Storm, getting angrier. Storm cloud. The remaining F-16 banks and rolls, avoiding the tornadoes, quickly gaining on the X-Jet. Suddenly, the clouds around the F-16 begin to swirl until it's completely encased in a long, dark tunnel, a tornado stretching across the sky. The F-16 begins to roll wildly inside the tornado, losing control, but manages to fire 2 more missiles just before the tornado bends and hurls the F-16 to the ground. The pilots eject, but the missiles continue on their warpath, easily passing through the storm. X-Jet, Jean stares at the radar screen. 2 blips rush toward them.
Can you stop them?
I'll try.
Jean concentrates hard. Storm yanks the stick back. Airspace. The X-Jet's wing folds up as it flies faster out of the storm. The tornado is dissipating. Both missiles roar towards the jet. But suddenly, one missile begins to wobble. X-Jet. Storm stares at the radar. The blips are getting closer.
Jean!
Jean holds her head tightly, concentrating. This ain't easy. Airspace. Close on the missile, it wobbles. A few lights on its surface blink off. It suddenly veers straight and explodes. Interior, X-Jet, same time. Angle on, Jean Grey, using all of her powers trying to stop the remaining missile, concentrating so hard that everything else just drops out. She closes her eyes. The X-Men wait. On the radar screen, the second missile is getting closer. Jean opens her eyes, terrified.
Oh, God.
Boom! The missile explodes. The X-Jet disappears in a cloud of fire and smoke. A large hole is blown in the roof of the jet. It decompresses. Everyone screams or drowned by the shrieking wind. Logan being pulled upwards toward the hole. Her gloved hand slowly slipping out of Bobby. She's sucked out. Airspace. And as she falls, screaming, the jet speeds away high above her. Nightcrawler suddenly appears and grabs her. Bamf! X-Jet. Bamf! Rogue and Nightcrawler reappear in a haze of smoke, falling to the ground. The X-Men stare at them in awe. In the cockpit, Storm and Jean work the controls, trying to stabilize the jet through the windshield. The Earth rises to meet them with dizzying speed. Storm Strange trying to pull out of the nosedive. The altimeter shows their descent 3,000 feet, 2,500, 2,000. Jean's hand reaches over and grabs Logan. She turns to him, eyes tearing up. Logan stares back, surprised. The plane is getting lower, lower. Storm closes her eyes. This is it.
Miss Storm?
Storm turns. Nightcrawler is pointing at the hole in the roof, which is bending and twisting, slowly repairing itself. The screaming wind dies to a whistle as the hole closes completely. Then, falling jet begins to slow. Their speed drops from 80 knots to 70, 60. Jean stares at controls, shaking her head. She's just as stunned. 15 knots, 10, 5. The ground is getting closer, and with a slight jolt, they stop. The mutants stare at each other, confused, shocked. They look out the windshield. Below them, a quiet road, a black town car parked nearby. Roadway. The X-Jet hovers in the air, nose down, only 15 feet off the ground. Magneto stands in front of the X-Jet, holding it in place with an outstretched hand. Mystique is next to him.
The X-Men. Right on time.
Forest camp later. The X-Jet sits in a clearing bordered on 3 sides by a high stone cliff. Below it, a small field is scattered with camping equipment, each tent and sleeping bag marked with the familiar X. Above them, deep, thick fog acts as a cover, obscuring any vision from their activities. Storm is working on the jet's underbelly. Jean walks down the ramp, seeing Logan. He acknowledges her curiously. She seems noticeably distraught.
How bad is it?
We're running fluid through the hydraulics. If the test passes, it'll take 4 or 5 hours to get off the ground.
It's not exactly what I meant, Jane.
I'm sorry, Logan. I'm just a little worried about Scott.
A long pause.
I know.
She puts her arm around Logan, resting her head on his shoulder. Very slowly, their faces draw closer together, approaching intimacy. But before their lips meet,
We're meeting in 10 minutes.
She walks away. Logan sighs. Forest clearing. Mystique sits by the fire. Nightcrawler crouches nearby, eyeing her. She senses him staring, but pays no attention.
So, they say you can imitate anybody, even the voice?
Mystique turns her head and speaks in his voice.
Even the voice?
Nightcrawler smiles.
So why not stay disguised all the time? You know, look like everyone else.
Because we shouldn't have to.
Nightcrawler grins wide. He likes that answer. Forest camp. Rogue, Bobby, and Pyro sit around a bundle of branches. Using Pyro's lighter, Bobby is trying to start a fire, but he can't seem to make the small fire catch.
You could help,
Pyro sits in the corner, his face turned down and cold. Bobby leans closer to the pile of sticks and blows. Closer, closer, trying to nurse the burning embers. Suddenly, the small fire erupts into a tower of flame. Bobby dives back and shoots Pyro a dirty look. Pyro just smiles. Forest camp. Logan, Jean, and Storm are on one side of the campfire. Magneto and Mystique on the other. They stare at each other. The silence redefines uncomfortable.
His name is William Stryker.
What does he want?
That's exactly the same question we should be asking Magneto.
Magneto sighs. This is going to be a long night.
So what is it? What do you want?
When Stryker invaded your mansion, he took an essential piece of hardware.
Cerebro?
Charles and I built Cerebro to use as a tool that I thought would unite us all. But the good professor, as with all things, never truly explored its full potential.
Jean and Storm listen carefully, but Logan fumes.
In the wrong hands, I fear it could be used as a powerful weapon against mutants.
But Stryker would need the professor to operate it.
Which is the only reason why I think he's still alive.
Logan glares at Magneto, still suspicious. Forest camp, the kids' area. Pyro stares at the fire, lost in it. Bobby turns to Rogue.
Can you hear what they're saying?
They're too quiet.
I could take a closer look.
How?
Bam! Nightcrawler disappears in a cloud of smoke. The others stare at each other, impressed.
Nice.
Forest camp, campfire. High above the group, Nightcrawler hangs upside down by his tail. No one seems to notice. Logan's in no mood for this debate.
How would Stryker know where Cerebro is or how it works?
Because I told him. Stryker has undeniable methods of persuasion, even against the mutant as strong as Charles.
Please understand if we do not take it all on good faith, but why do you need us?
Stryker has a base he's been operating outside of for years. Try as I might, I have been unable to locate it. But I think one of you might.
Magneto turns to Logan, eyeing him suspiciously.
Who the hell is this Stryker anyway?
Are you sure you don't remember, Logan? The metal on your bones has his signature.
Logan stares. The realization floods through his body. Magneto looks to Jean. She looks back to Magneto.
Yes, sir. Tried.
No, he didn't. He's always known.
Realization gives way to mistrust and betrayal. Logan turns to Jean.
I can't. If those memories exist, they're buried very deep.
A long moment between the three of them.
Then grab a shovel.
Forest clearing. Jean sits across from Logan, nervous. She reaches her hands toward his head. He flinches a little.
Relax.
Jean moves toward him and puts her fingers on his temples. His eyes roll back slightly. She concentrates hard.
I hope it's as good as the first time.
Push in on Jean Grey. She grimaces as blurry flashes from Logan's mind flicker in her eyes. Flash! Logan at a bar talking to a military officer, riding in the back of a military truck. The truck driving past a huge frozen dam, entering a tunnel from above ground, white snow everywhere. Walking into a medical lab, doctors grouped around a large tank. Flash! Jean pulls away, exhausted. She nearly falls. Logan's knees buckle and he sits down. She regains her breath.
Stryker's at Alkali Lake.
I was just there. I saw that base. Nothing's left, Jean.
That's because he's under it.
Forest clearing. Storm is still fixing the jet. Jean emerges from the underbelly and turns toward her. She sighs.
Try it again.
She walks past Rogue, who sleeps next to Bobby, his arm draped across her. Next to them, Pyro sits, angrily watching. Nightcrawler hangs from a tree by his tail, sleeping. Logan's tent, minutes later. Logan's eyes spring open as the tent flap quietly slips apart. A female figure enters. It's Jean. She sits on his sleeping bag. He eyes her curiously, about to speak, when she presses her finger to his lips. No. She crawls back on top and begins to passionately kiss him. He kisses back, sliding his hand under her skirt when... Snicked! Logan's claws press against Jean's jugular, close on Logan's hand, his fingers on 3 claw scars on her abdomen. He looks at her. She looks back and smiles. Her eyes turn yellow as she transforms into Mystique. Her mouth travels languidly to his ear.
No one's ever left a scar quite like you.
What do you want? An apology?
You know what I want.
Mystique bites his ear hard and sexy. She sits up.
But what do you want?
And she suddenly transforms from Mystique to Storm to Grace to, with a smile, Rogue. Finally, back to Jean. Logan throws her to the ground.
What do you really want?
And then she flashes, Stryker.
I want you to get out.
She sneers, snaps back to Mystique, and leaves. Push in on Logan's face as we dissolve into the roar of forest. The X-Jet lifting off into the orange morning sky. X-Jet, Rogue, Bobby, and Nightcrawler are watching Logan and Storm suit up into battle uniforms, attaching small black radios to their ears.
Where's ours?
On order, should arrive in a few.
Rogue, come here.
Rogue moves toward the controls. Bobby follows. Storm points appropriately to controls and displays.
After we touch down and go in, you are in charge. If something happens to us, use the ascension control to get the plane off the ground. Do not try to control the plane while it's in the air. The auto navigation system will fly you home.
Then what?
You've all got superpowers. Figure it out.
In the back of the jet, Magneto sits across from Pyro. Magneto holds his helmet in his lap. Pyro stares at him.
They say you're the bad guy.
Is that what they say?
That's a dorky looking helmet. What's it for?
This dorky looking helmet is the only thing that's going to protect me from the real bad guy. What's your name?
John.
What's your real name, John?
Pyro thinks for a moment. Nervous, he flicks his lighter open and begins to play with a small flame, like in the museum.
Pyro.
Quite a talent you've got there, Pyro.
I can only manipulate it. I can't make it.
You are a god among insects. Never let anyone tell you any different.
Push in on Pyro, the voice in front of him finally matching the ever-present voice in his head. Stryker's base, control room. Stryker sits on the edge of a chair, bouncing a baseball against the wall, catching and bouncing, and begins to turn on monitors, one by one, each displaying a shot of Xavier's children in captivity.
Why keep the children here if they're going to just die?
Why? So we can make sure that it's working.
Xavier's mansion, front lawn. A helicopter lands in the front yard of the mansion. Lyman emerges and lowers Xavier to the ground.
Is this your home?
Yes, it is. Mr. Lyman, would you please stay here and alert me if anyone shows up?
Of course.
As Lyman climbs back into the helicopter, Xavier wheels himself into the demolished entrance. Skies above Alkali Lake. The X-Jet circles high above. Angle on, a small camera emerges from the belly, scanning. Near the cockpit, Logan, Jean, and Storm gather around a floating 3D hologram that shows a photographic terrain map of the landscape. Magneto and Mystique also observe, but keep it to the back. Logan looks intensely at it. The dam, spillway, tunnels, and Alkali Base are all visible. From the naked eye, nothing but snow covers the base and dam. Jean clicks a button.
This is a topographic map of the area.
and the holographic map suddenly changes into a crystal red with varying degrees of pink and white marks that represent repetitive impact over time.
And here are the recent density changes. The lighter the mark, the heavier the activity.
We see a series of white lines come out from the right spillway tunnel. The lines look like hundreds of tire tracks. Logan shakes his head with a sly smile.
That's the entrance.
Jean changes the map once again. It turns crystal blue with varying degrees of white and blue, water activity. The entrance, tunnel, and spillway are all deep blue.
This shows the depth of the ice that covers the ground, water activity.
If we all go in here, he could flood the spillway.
Can you teleport inside?
I have to be able to see where I'm going. Otherwise, I could end up inside of a wall.
I'll pause.
I have an idea.
Magneto eyes him, a plan brewing. Damn, spillway corridor later. Logan walks alone down the spillway corridor. He comes upon the runoff tunnels and peers into the one on the right. No signs of water. He cautiously proceeds inside. He yells,
Stryker!
It echoes through the massive tunnel.
It's me, Wolverine!
He walks further into the tunnel. Still, no signs of water. Above him, a small video camera in the shadows watches Logan approaching. Stryker's base. Wilkins, a bored guard, looks up to see Logan on one of the monitors and looks over his shoulder.
What do you want me to do?
Let it.
Wilkins reaches for a button and is about to press it when...
Wait.
Stryker peers over his shoulder and smiles.
Is he alone?
Yes, sir.
Wilkins has his hand on the button. Stryker pauses, thinking.
Send a team and bring him to me in the north corridor. Carefully.
Spillway tunnel. Moments later, Logan walks cautiously through the tunnel. In front of him, a section of the wall opens and 3 soldiers emerge, rifles up. Behind him, another wall opens and 3 more soldiers appear. Logan is surrounded.
Don't move. Hands in the air.
Oddly, Logan obeys. Stryker's base, north corridor. Logan is led down a corridor by Anne and the soldiers, arms and feet shackled, guns to his head. Stryker waits for them at the end. As he approaches, Logan, staring him closely in the eyes, the cocky grin on his face suddenly fades.
Who do you think you're looking at?
Anne looks puzzled.
Sir?
You do such a good impression on video, but in person...
He lifts a gun to Logan's head, finger on the trigger. When Logan quickly transforms into Mystique, her arms, now thinner, slip from the shackles, as do her legs and feet. She wraps the shackles around Stryker's gun, rips it away, knocks him to the wall. Instantly, 2 guards fire. She ducks, and the guards shoot each other. As she handsprings forward, Anne whips out a pistol, but Mystique hits her arm as she fires. Boom! The bullet pierces a nearby pipe. Steam shoots out, filling the corridor. Stryker stands and tries to see through the steam. Mystique is gone. Stryker storms off. A guard follows. Stryker's base, control room. Alarms blare. Wilkins, the only guard left in the control room, nearly leaps out of his chair and begins scanning the monitors. On the monitors, Stryker walks quickly through the hallway, followed by the guard.
What the?
The door opens. Stryker and the guard enter.
Seal the room!
Wilkins quickly does as he's told, pressing buttons. Huge doors slam on the monitors.
What's happening?
We have a metamorph on the loose. She could be anybody.
Anybody?
Wham! Stryker hits Wilkins across the back of his head. He slumps onto the floor. Pan back to reveal Stryker has become Mystique. Wham! She spins, kicks the guard, knocking him out. She takes the seat and fastens a small headset to her ear. She presses some buttons and pulls up a map of the base.
I'm in.
Spillway corridor. Magneto, Logan, Jean, Storm, and Nightcrawler stand high above the spillway corridor. Magneto smiles proudly.
She's good.
You have no idea.
They climb down the ladder into the spillway. Stryker's base, control room foyer. The real Stryker stands outside the massive control room door with Anne. He pushes a button to open it. It doesn't budge. He tries again. No use. He slams the door with his hand.
The door is 20 inches thick, sir.
Anne nervously watches Stryker losing his control.
Yes. She's in there. She's in there. And I'm out here!
Lyman walks up.
Sir, she's opened the main entrance. More mutants have entered the base.
Can we flood the spillway?
Everything's controlled from the inside of that room.
Get that machine here. Drill a hole through this door and kill whoever's inside. I don't care what they look like.
Stryker exhales. He turns to Anne. Make a decision.
They can't stop anything. In 20 minutes, they'll all be on their knees. Evacuate the man and let loose on you recruits. Set the charges and meet me in the augmentation. I'll have my final chat with 143. Then we're leaving.
Xavier's mansion. Xavier slowly wheels through the hall. A cry catches his attention. It's coming from a nearby wall. Close on the wall, as Xavier presses a panel, it slides back, revealing a little girl crouched inside a hidden stairwell. She looks up at him, tears in her eyes.
Are they gone?
Xavier smiles warmly and nods.
Yes. Where are all the others?
She shrugs.
Well, then I guess we'll have to find them, won't we?
He holds out his hand. The girl takes it and stands. Xavier's mansion, Cerebro hallway, moments later. Xavier wheels towards the undamaged Cerebro door. He approaches the retinal scanner, pausing in front of it. He turns and smiles at the little girl, who smiles back. The doorway scans Xavier's eyes and opens.
Don't leave me alone, please.
Okay, you can come inside.
Xavier wheels inside, followed by the little girl. Xavier's mansion. Xavier enters, heading down the long platform, finally stopping at the end. Behind Xavier, the girl walks in and smiles, her blue eyes full of anticipation. She walks to the front of the platform. As Xavier turns away from the little girl, we slowly rotate around him, and something happens. In every direction that he doesn't face, the room slowly disintegrates into something darker, something sinister. The little girl reveals herself as Mutant 143. We track around him to reveal Dark Cerebro, a dirty, bastardized recreation of Cerebro built by Stryker. Xavier looks back and the giant Cerebro door slams shut. The little girl stands at the end of the platform and smiles. Stryker's base. Mystique clicks on a series of security monitors. Angle on a monitor displaying Xavier's children locked in their cages. Mystique's focus is sidetracked by the image. Boom! Something big hits the door. She turns. Stryker's base. The jaws of lifelike machine is attached to the door. A series of drilling devices on its arms go to work. Behind it, two guards outfitted like the ones who attacked the mansion hold automatic rifles aimed and ready. Anne walks by a figure who lays face down on a medical table. She removes the pipette and drips the yellow liquid into the back of his neck. It bubbles and sinks into his skin, creating a now familiar round scar. It's Cyclops. Toad emerges from the shadows, holding something. He hands it to her. It's Cyclops' visor. Stryker's base. Stryker walks across the platform towards a doorway that connects to a huge sphere suspending in a massive cave. The exoskeleton of Dark Cerebro is a complex lattice work of circuitry and metal. At the moment, it is dormant, dark, and still. The door opens and Stryker steps inside. Stryker's base, Dark Cerebro. Pull back to reveal Charles Xavier sitting paralyzed on a platform wearing the Cerebro helmet. In front of him, at the end of the platform, sits Mutant 143. All this time, Xavier's escape, the return to the mansion, was an illusion created by 143, designed to get him to activate Dark Cerebro. Stryker walks down the platform past Xavier. He bends down and starts to whisper in 143's ear. Xavier's mansion, Cerebro. The little girl walks down the platform and approaches Xavier, begins to whisper in his ear.
It's time to find our friends.
Stryker's base, Dark Cerebro. Stryker continues to whisper to 143. Xavier's mansion, Cerebro.
All of them. We have to find all of the mutants. Everywhere.
Xavier nods, understanding, and starts to push buttons. Stryker's base, Dark Cerebro. Casually, Stryker bends down and utters one last command.
Now, make me proud.
Stryker touches him warmly on the back, turns and walks out. The door closes, close on Mutant 143 as green and blue eyes begin to rapidly dilate. Xavier's mansion, Cerebro, the illusion. Xavier finishes what he needs and looks up at the little girl.
Now, don't move.
He leans forward and picks up the Cerebro helmet. The walls fall away, and the Cerebro effect. In seconds, Xavier is sitting inside a giant projection of the Earth, spinning slowly, just like before. Dotted across the entire landscape, across all the continents, are sparkling red lights representing the mutants of the world. Stryker's base, outside Dark Cerebro, same time. Stryker walks away from Dark Cerebro behind him. The giant sphere begins to slowly rotate. A low throbbing hum starts to echo, getting faster and louder. Dark Cerebro is warming up. Stryker's base, filtration room, same time. Anne Reynolds is inside the huge filtration room, a wet maze of generators under the dam. She sets a small charge on the base of one of the power generators. The charge blinks. Pull back to reveal 4 more blinking charges placed on each of the generators, each one counting down. Stryker's base, control room. Mystique watches the X-Men on a monitor coming down the hallway. She pushes a button and the monitor switches to a map of the base. She looks to the door. It begins to crack with the pressure as the machine continues to rip through its layers. Not much time. She looks around. There's nowhere to go. Crash! The entire door rips off. The machine is scattered on the ground, destroyed, revealing Magneto and the X-Men. Behind them are 2 guards, guns floating in the air, pointing to their heads. Magneto steps over the mangled remnants of the machine. He turns back to the guards.
Scurry.
The soldiers run off, their rifles turning to follow them. After a second, the gun drops.
Eric?
They listen as the room is filled.
Have you found it?
What's that sound?
It's Cerebro. The professor is close.
Magneto looks at Mystique.
Have you found it?
Mystique nods, eyeing the power grid.
A large portion of the energy from the dam has been diverted to this chamber.
They are all staring at the grid, all but Logan. He's too busy staring at another monitor, which shows Stryker quickly walking through a corridor.
Come, we have little time.
Jean stops them.
Not without us.
Mystique's eyes travel to the image of the children on a monitor. Storm looks at the monitor.
The children. I'll get them. Kurt, will you come with me?
Kurt nods. Jean glances around the room, realizes...
Wait, where's Logan?
Magneto and Mystique wait impatiently by the door.
Logan's gone after his own prize. There's no time to wait for him.
They begin to leave the control room. Storm eyes Magneto, cautiously turns to Jean.
I'll be all right. Take the kids to the spillway and meet us at the jet.
Stryker's base, main corridor, same time. Logan races down a hallway, hunting for Stryker. Stryker's base, Dark Cerebro. Above, Xavier and 143. The huge globe rotates slowly, illuminated by the red lights. Push in on Xavier, his face comatose and despondent. Push in on Mutant 143, his eyes dilating, stare coldly focused on Xavier. Cerebro. Xavier looks puzzled. He looks at the little girl.
That's odd. I can't seem to focus in on anyone.
Maybe you have to increase the signal.
Xavier turns a dial, concentrating. Above him, the red lights intensify and the heavy drone gets louder. Stryker's base, containment hall. A large door opens. Storm and Nightcrawler slip into the containment room, gawking. Wide on the room to reveal a massive open cylinder, 150 feet in diameter. Above them, 8 glass cages swing from the chains attached to the ceiling, each holding a different one of Xavier's students.
My God.
Storm and Nightcrawler start towards the bank of switches when a figure leaps high above and lands in front of them. The figure, crouched on all fours, crawls into a shaft of light, revealing Toad. His eyes still black and dilated. He grins at Storm and sticks out his tongue, revealing it charred and scarred from their last battle.
Get the kids. Go!
Storm runs toward the bank of switches. Toad leaps toward her, but Nightcrawler jumps into the air and slams against him, knocking him away from her. Toad looks up at the ceiling. He grins and scurries up a massive column in the center of the room. Nightcrawler quickly follows, racing upward. On the ground, Storm approaches the large control box. She throws first switch, and a cage begins to lower. She hits a second switch. Sparks fly. The cage is stopped. Inside, Jones watches, terrified. Above, Toad, chased by Nightcrawler, grabs onto a large, thick chain and rips it from the ceiling. It swings down towards Storm.
Miss Storm!
She looks up just as it slams into her, knocking her into the center of the room, unconscious. Stryker's base, main corridor. Jean, Mystique, and Magneto walk quickly down a long corridor. Jean in the lead, Mystique and Magneto behind her, staring at each other suspiciously.
It's just ahead.
She suddenly shuts her eyes, concentrating.
Wait,
Magneto and Mystique look at her, puzzled.
I think it's...
Behind them, a door begins to rise, revealing a figure silhouetted on the other side. They turn around. Jean squints to see Cyclops stepping into the hall.
Scott!
He doesn't answer. Jean looks closer. Something is wrong. Cyclops is wearing his visor, but his face is emotionless. On the back of his neck is the familiar circular scar.
Scott?
Scott reaches for his visor and fires an optic blast. Mystique ducks while Jean tackles Magneto to the ground. The optic blast just barely misses them. X-Jet, Rogue, Pyro, and Bobby sit in the cockpit listening to the battle over the radio. They hear an explosion, then static.
That's it.
Pyro reaches over and hits a button. Behind them, a ramp descends. They look at him, shocked, as he stands up.
Where do you think you're going?
In there. I'm tired of this kids' table shit. I want to fight.
You don't have a uniform. You'll freeze before you make it to the spillway.
Will I?
John.
John stares at her hand, winks, and walks down the ramp. Inside, Rogue turns Bobby and eyes the Ascension control panel. Stryker's base. Cyclops fires again. Jean concentrates, and the floor is ripped upward, blocking his blast like a shield. While Jean tries to reinforce the shield with more pieces of flooring, Magneto stands and turns to Mystique.
This is one lover's quarrel we must not involve ourselves in, my dear.
Mystique smiles and they calmly walk off. Cyclops fires again, knocking the shield down. Jean turns to run, but the door slides shut between her and Magneto. She sees Cyclops approaching and runs into an adjoining room. Stryker's base, containment hall. The children scream as Toad and Nightcrawler fight each other, leaping from cage to cage. Toad climbs to the top of the room. He looks at a pin, which connects a cage to a chain. He smiles and yanks the pin out. The cage begins to fall. Inside the cage, Jubilee screams. Nightcrawler sees her. Bamf! He teleports inside the cage, grabs Jubilee, and bamf! They're gone. Bamf! He puts Jubilee safely on the ground. The cage comes crashing down next to them. He looks up to see Toad leap from one cage to another, yanking two more pins. Two more cages begin to drop. The kids inside panic. Bamf! Nightcrawler teleports from one cage to the next, saving the kids before they hit the ground. On the ground, Nightcrawler appears, huffing and puffing, fatigued. He looks up in the rafters. Toad grins wickedly and disappears in a blur of speed and movement. 5 more cages, one after another, suddenly begin to drop. Push in on Nightcrawler as he closes his eyes. Bamf, 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 bamf. The silhouette of his movement screams through the space. One by one, the kids safely appear on the ground. Crash, crash, crash. Cages are falling all around Storm's unconscious body. In the rafters, Toad pulls a pin from the last cage. Jones is inside. Bamf! Nightcrawler appears behind Toad. He wraps his arm around Toad. Bamf! The two of them teleport into Jones's falling cage. Inside the cage. Bamf! Nightcrawler and Toad reappear. Nightcrawler grabs Jones and bamf! They're out, leaving Toad behind, screaming. On the ground, Nightcrawler and Jones reappear to see the cage falling towards Storm's body. Bamf! Bamf! She disappears in a cloud of smoke as Toad's cage smashes into the ground. Storm comes to. She and the kids stare in awe at Nightcrawler, who lies on the ground trying to catch his breath.
I think I have to throw up.
Stryker's base, main corridor. Stryker walks down a hallway. A dozen soldiers run past him, exiting the base. Stryker opens a door, entering the augmentation room. Anne stands waiting for him. They walk towards a large door at the end of the room.
Did you set the charges?
Of course.
Sneaked! They stop and turn around to see Logan staring at the charts, diagrams, and torturous medical instruments, horrified. Finally, he gazes into a long tank filled with amber liquid, the same kind of tank that fills his memories. Logan turns and faces them, infuriated. Stryker backs away.
You know what to do.
She silently nods. Stryker backs through the door and shuts it, leaving Anne and Logan behind. Anne holds out her arms and spreads her fingers wide. Her hands twitch. Her eyes turn completely black. Dolly around Anne, revealing a circular scar on the back of her neck. Bones crunch as the fingers on both of her hands extend. Logan gawks as Anne Reynolds shows her true mutant form. She gracefully holds up long, spindly fingers that taper into razor-sharp adamantium claws. Slash! She reaches towards him and flicks one long finger. Logan flinches, realizing she's got a small gash in his cheek. She smiles. Logan sneers and swipes at her head. She ducks, comes back, and kicks him. He stumbles back. She leaps and screeches, swiping with both hands. He blocks her claws with his own. They fight, adamantium against adamantium. Sparks fly, hardly in the romantic way. The Stryker's base, escape tunnel. Stryker calmly walks down the long escape tunnel. Stryker's base, augmentation room. Anne slashes, misses, and hits a cluster of power cables in the ceiling. They twist and writhe. The small electrical sparks fall to the ground. Logan tackles her, and they crash through a small glass wall. X-rays, diagrams, and equipment shatter. They're a close match, but Anne is much faster. Logan is being torn to shreds by her lightning-fast hand. She spins, kicks, knocking Logan into the Weapon X tank. It smashes open. Fluid spills across the room. He's sprawled on top of one of the broken tanks. Dazed, nearly unconscious. He can't beat her hand to hand, and he knows it. Logan looks over and sees the severed power cables writhing nearby. Thinks fast. Anne raises her claws, ready to deliver her final death strike. As she swipes, Logan rolls off the tank, grabs the power cables, and tosses them to the ground. Zap! A surge of electricity courses along the floor through the tank fluid. It hits Anne. She screams, falls backwards onto the tank, convulsing and shrieking like an animal. Her claws twitch and stop. Logan watches as the tank that once gave birth to him becomes the sarcophagus for Stryker's latest creation. Filtration room. Jean enters the room. She turns to see Cyclops right behind and quickly shuts the heavy metal door. Wham! It's blown apart as soon as it closes. Jean ducks, barely avoiding the flying door. As she runs, she doesn't notice the blinking charges attached to the generators. Cyclops fires again. Jean holds up her hand and the blast seems to hit an invisible wall around her. She strains, using every last bit of strength to hold back his blast.
Scott, don't do this.
Cyclops adjusts his visor and the beam intensifies. Jean sweats as it starts to push towards her, the blinding light getting so bright that she has to look away. Wham! The beam explodes and finally hits her, throwing her back 20 feet to the floor, unconscious. Cyclops looms over Jean. He adjusts his visor and the red glow intensifies, ready to fire. When the loud throbbing hum of dark cerebro fills the room, Cyclops begins to tremble. Stryker's base, containment hall. Jones hugs Storm tightly. Storm hugs him back, sighing with exhaustion.
Time to go home.
They start to walk towards the door. Suddenly, the low throbbing hum of dark cerebro echoes through the room. Nightcrawler stops, dizzy. He turns to Storm. The throbbing gets louder.
Miss Storm.
He stares at Storm in shock. She looks dazed, clutching her head. She falls to the ground, screaming. All around, the kids drop like flies as 143's signal hits them. The deep, resonant droning in the background. Nightcrawler moves to help them, but falls to his knees. Dark cerebro. The world map rotates. 1,000 mutant indicator red light spinning inside it. Mutant 143's breathing becomes heavy, erratic. He trembles, sweating, eyes dilating back and forth. The low throbbing hum gets faster and faster. Suddenly, a burst of light floods the map. This is the beginning. Forest clearing. Stryker emerges from the underground escape tunnel into a small clearing beside the delta of the dam. The spillway can be seen to the side. The dam far in the distance. There is a large dual rotor helicopter resting on a small inconspicuous helipad. Stryker moves toward it. Helicopter. Moments later, Stryker hops into the helicopter and begins to hit switches. The monitor starts powering up. He hits the final switch and the headlights turn on just as a hand quickly reaches in and grabs him, throwing Stryker from the helicopter, landing on the snowy ground. Forest helipad. Logan. Stryker opens his mouth to scream. Snicked! Logan's claws extend and immediately retract as the deep throbbing of dark cerebro hits him. Logan clutches his head and falls to his knees. Stryker sits up, swallows, and grins.
Wolverine.
Logan weakly grabs onto Stryker's leg.
How does your head feel? Like there's someone inside it?
Logan tries to scream but can't. He tries to extend his claws, but they only push out an inch and retract.
Mortality has never really been an issue for you, Wolverine. How does it feel to know that you'll finally die?
Stryker kicks Logan across the face. Logan rolls away from him, still clutching his head. Stryker kicks him again.
Why did you come back? Looking for answers?
You couldn't help him. You took my life.
You make it sound as though I stole something from you. As I recall, it was you who volunteered for our program.
Who am I?
You are just a failed experiment. You know, you should be thanking me. If you really knew about your past, what kind of person you were, you'd be destroyed.
Angle on Logan, devastated, in agony. He closes his eyes, pressing his head against the ground, barely breathing. Interior, Stryker's base, outside Dark Cerebro. Magneto and Mystique stare in awe as they approach the massive rotating sphere of Dark Cerebro, now spinning at full speed, red lights emanating from within. The throbbing sound is deafening. Mystique falls to the ground in pain.
Rick, hurry!
She can barely control herself, shifting into the hundreds of people that she has copied in her life. Magneto lifts his hand. We hear a loud groaning, like the scratching of metal on metal. Dark Cerebro begins to slow. Stryker's base, Dark Cerebro. Xavier catatonic stares at 143. Above them, the red lights are getting brighter. Stryker's base, filtration room. Jean and Cyclops lay on the ground in pain. X-Jet, Rogue, and Bobby are too weak to move on the jet floor. Containment hall. Storm is on the ground, screaming, her eyes white. Nightcrawler and the children writhe in agony. Middle of the woods. Pyro lays on the ground, crying. His fingers pulse red. World montage. We see glimpses of different mutants. A young girl in a classroom clutches her ears. She opens her mouth and screams. Other students gawk as the windows begin to shatter. Dr. Hank McCoy lifts up a beaker. He screams and the beaker falls, shattering on the ground. His hand starts to twitch. Suddenly, fur sprouts along his arm and his skin begins to turn blue. A homeless red-haired woman in New York City heaves and cries underneath a large black overcoat. Pedestrians gawk and stare as large spiked bones start to sprout all over her body. A man at a poker game in New Orleans. The cards in his fingers incinerate as power pulses through his hand. The other players watch in fear as he starts to convulse. Forest helipad, back to. Logan holds his head against the ground. Stryker turns and walks back to the helicopter. Stryker's base, hallway outside Dark Cerebro. Magneto concentrates. His hand trembles. Dark Cerebro continues to screech, slowing down. And after a few seconds, the giant sphere finally grinds to a halt. The sound suddenly stops. Silence. Close on, Mystique's face. She stops transforming, eyes wide, frozen like a dead woman's eyes. Suddenly, she blinks. She sits up. Magneto waves his hand. The doors open. He enters. Dark Cerebro. The large open room of Dark Cerebro. Magneto sees Xavier facing 143, still trapped in the illusion.
Hello, Charles.
Stryker's base, containment hall. Storm and Nightcrawler slowly get to their feet and help the children up.
Everybody okay?
Murmurs.
All right. Follow me. Stay close.
Filtration room. Cyclops sits up, shaking off the effects of Dark Cerebro. He looks over to see Jean sitting in a far corner holding her head.
Jean.
She doesn't look up. He stands, walks over, and crouches next to her, tenderly touching her head.
Hey.
She screams and flinches, startled, terrified.
It's okay. It's me.
She finally calms down and looks up. Her eyes are bloodshot, filled with tears. She holds a shaky hand up to his face, caresses it gently.
God.
What happened?
Jean shuts her eyes tight and rubs them. He helps her up. She seems disoriented, holding on to him for support.
I don't...
Her comm device crackles with Storm's voice.
Jean, I've got the kids.
Cyclops hears a faint beeping. He turns, sees a charge stuck to one of the generators. He looks up and sees the rest.
All right, meet us in the west corridor. We're going to get the professor.
Jean.
He reaches toward the charge. It beeps louder and the clock starts to count down faster. He pulls away and it slows to its normal speed.
Jean, we have to go.
Scott, something's wrong.
Cyclops stares at the charge.
I know.
Stryker's base, Dark Cerebro. Magneto stares at Xavier, who is still comatose.
How does it look from there, Charles? Still fighting your good fight? From here, it doesn't look like they're playing by your rules.
Magneto floats across to the middle of the chasm.
Maybe it's time we play by theirs.
Through the doorway, Mystique smiles as Magneto turns and walks out.
Goodbye, Charles.
Close on Xavier, still in the illusion, still comatose. Push in on Mutant 143 as his eyes bulge, drool dripping from his mouth. Magneto leaves, the door shuts. Stryker's base, hallway outside Dark Cerebro. Magneto turns back to the closed door, his arms raised. Cerebro slowly begins to rotate again. Magneto turns and walks out. A moment of silence, and then the throbbing hum grows again. Dark Cerebro. Billions of white lights flood the globe, each light representing the non-mutants of the world, the rest of humanity, and Cerebro's new targets. Forest helipad. Stryker's about to open the helicopter door when, snicked! Stryker pauses. He hears it faintly. He stops, pulls out a small dart gun, wheels around. Logan cuts the gun from Stryker's hand and throws him to the ground. He pulls Stryker close.
Now, you were about to tell me something.
Boom! The ground is rocked by an explosion. Filtration room. The first charge explodes, sending the giant generator smashing into the side of the room. Debris and water spray everywhere. Boom! The second charge hits. An alarm blares and warning lights flash. Forest helipad. The ground is suddenly rocked by the sound of two more explosions. Still holding Stryker to the ground, Logan looks to the spillway beside him. Water begins to fill the spillway, blocking the way the X-Men came in.
What did you do?
Stryker's face curls into a smile. Logan looks deeply into his eyes. He looks back at the tunnel. The sound of tremendous rushing water can be heard, as can a faint rumbling. He's torn between his past, Stryker, and his future, the X-Men, and who are trapped underground. He grabs a bundle of chains used to secure the helicopter and quickly chains Stryker to a post.
Don't move. We're not finished yet.
Logan races back into the tunnel. Outside Dark Cerebro, Storm, the children, and Nightcrawler come around a corner, approaching the gigantic spinning Cerebrosphere. They stare in awe all around him. The creaking and breaking of the base can be heard.
Was ist das?
Cerebro.
Just then, Cyclops arrive, guiding a staggering Jean Grey. The low, throbbing hum of Dark Cerebro is once again audible.
Jean, I thought you and Magneto stopped it.
He did, but...
Suddenly, Jean closes her eyes, concentrating, places her hand on the door, using her telepathy. Logan comes running down the hallway out of breath.
We have to get out of here now. There's a tunnel that goes under the spillway. Stryker has a helicopter there.
Jean has her hand on the door, concentrating.
No. Magneto's reverse Cerebro. It's not targeting mutants anymore.
Who is it targeting now? Martians?
Everyone else. The professor's still inside. He's being manipulated by a mutant.
Boom! The complex is rocked by the sound of the dam falling apart. The kids look nervous. Dark Cerebro's hum is louder.
Kurt.
Yeah?
Kurt, you have to take me in there. Now.
I told you, it's too dangerous. If I can't see where I'm going,
No.
Logan looks at Jean closely, notices something odd about her. The way she's staring at him, at nothing in particular.
I have to. There's no time.
Wait a second.
Logan grabs Jean by the shoulders, looks deep into her eyes.
What's wrong?
She's blind.
Push in on Storm, staring at Jean in agony. She turns to the children, to the X-Men, stares at Nightcrawler.
But Miss Storm.
They all turn to look at the Storm. From the look on her face, they know there's no debate.
Get to the helicopter.
Cyclops nods. Nightcrawler wraps his arms around Storm and closes his eyes.
You've got 5 minutes before I come in after you.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth.
Bamf! They disappear. Cerebro, Xavier's mansion. Bamf! Storm and Nightcrawler reappear, finding themselves on the platform behind Xavier in the Cerebro of 143's illusion. Nightcrawler stares in awe at the room and the billions of white lights rotating above. Dark Cerebro's hum is getting faster and faster, the white lights brightening.
As it is in heaven.
Forest clearing. The hum echoes. Stryker, tugging at the chains and now feeling the effect of Dark Cerebro, opens his mouth to scream, but nothing comes out. Then he hears a voice.
Mr. Stryker, how good to see you again.
Stryker lifts his head up to see Magneto grinning. Mystique is next to him.
We keep running into each other.
Whip!
Mark my words, it will never happen again.
Helicopter. On the ground. Magneto sits next to Mystique. She pushes a button and the propellers begin to spin. She's about to pull back on the stick when she glances outside. He turns to match her gaze, eyes narrowed curiously, because Forest, a figure, stands alone, flicking a lighter. Pyro. Helicopter. Magneto looks at Mystique for advice. She has no answer. Magneto reaches out and opens the door. With a smile and a nod, Magneto extends an invitation. Pyro hesitates, then puts the lighter back into his pocket. He walks towards the helicopter and joins them silently. The helicopter takes off, flying high into the sky. Magneto, Mystique, and Pyro, the new brotherhood. Cerebro, the illusion. The little girl looks up to see Storm and Nightcrawler at the far end of the platform behind Xavier. And just as they make eye contact,
Professor!
But her voice is a faint whisper among many. The platform between the little girl and Storm starts to stretch to near infinity. Cerebro is now gigantic. The perspective is off. The rotating globe seems to be the actual size of the Earth. The platform is so long that it looks like an endless highway stretching into the void. In the front, Xavier looks around but sees nothing.
I hear them, but I can't find them.
Then increase the signal.
He closes his eyes again, concentrating. The droning is getting louder. In the back of the platform, Storm is running towards Xavier, but making no headway. Nightcrawler cowers behind her, scared. The little girl suddenly appears in front of her, glaring.
Stay away.
Storm takes another step, and the platform between her and the girl suddenly breaks and falls into the abyss, creating a massive chasm between them. Storm looks into the chasm, then closes her eyes and continues walking. Nightcrawler is completely terrified.
It's just an illusion. You can't fool me. It's just a game.
Push in on the girl, eyes gleaming.
Are you sure?
She steps forward, unafraid. Her foot steps into the chasm and she falls, screaming. Twop! Nightcrawler's tail reaches down and grabs her, pulling her back. Boom! The room is suddenly rocked by the sound of another explosion. The illusion quickly drops, then realigns itself. The girl flashes to 143 and back again. The lights are getting brighter, the hum louder and faster. In the front, Xavier looks around suspiciously.
Professor!
He looks around confused. The little girl is getting very agitated. On the other side of the chasm, a rumble in the sky above. Storm and Nightcrawler look up to see plates of metal raining down, pieces of dark Cerebro breaking away and entering the fragile illusion. Storm looks at Nightcrawler, then glances toward Xavier. Nightcrawler quickly wraps his arms around her. Bam! They disagree. In front of the platform. Bam! Storm and Nightcrawler appear in between Xavier and the girl. The girl stares at them angrily.
Storm! I was just trying to find you.
Professor, you have to stop Cerebro now.
I'm just locating the others and showing our friend the mutants of the world.
The little girl smiles. Xavier looks up at the billions of white lights.
These aren't the mutants of the world.
Xavier is confused.
Professor, none of this is real. It's an illusion. You have to see beyond it.
The little girl moves to Xavier's side.
Don't listen to her. She's lying.
Storm pleads with Xavier.
Professor, please, who is this girl?
She's a student.
You know every student in the school. Which one is she?
Angle on the girl, eyes wide, getting angry.
This is an illusion, Professor. You've been inside of it for far too long.
The girl's eyes suddenly change, one becoming green and one blue. Xavier thinks hard. He looks up at the white lights, back at the girl. Realization crosses his face.
Jason!
Girl narrows her eyes. Xavier turns toward her.
No.
Xavier concentrates.
No. Stop. You're hurting me.
The little girl gets furious and the entire room flashes from illusion to illusion, the amalgam of horrible nightmares and desolate landscapes, death, pain, agony, terror. The platform remains suspended throughout each illusion.
Get out of my head!
Suddenly, the image of 143 flashes and the illusion of Xavier breaks it down. Storm sees this. She concentrates. Push in on Storm as her eyes burn white. Electricity culls from the ceiling. Wind blows their faces. 10 lines of white-hot static electricity pushed together into one bolt of lightning, which strikes Mutant 143. Cerebro, the illusion. The girl screams as the illusion ripples. Her face twitches and flashes into the leering, ghoulish image of Mutant 143. Then back to the girl. She disappears, revealing 143 completely. The illusion drops into Stryker's base, Dark Cerebro. Dark Cerebro, which is falling apart. Girders and pieces of structure falling from above. Boom! The room is rocked by another hit. The platform shakes, bends. Xavier closes his eyes and reaches up. He quickly removes the helmet. The lights fade. The hum stops. Xavier stares at Mutant 143, whose face is emotionless, but his eyes seem to be filled with sadness, possible remorse. The room is hit hard. The ceiling begins to flake and crack. The giant girder hits the platform, destabilizing it. 143 is knocked off the edge. They helplessly watch as he tumbles into the abyss. The platform is about to break away completely. Storm moves close to Xavier. Nightcrawler does his best to wrap his arms around them both. Bam! Dam. Massive cracks spread through the dam like spider webs. Chunks of concrete begin to fall away. Water gushing from the holes. The entire dam is about to collapse. Forest helipad. Cyclops, Jean, and the kids stand, blasted by snowy wind, waiting beside the empty helipad. Nightcrawler and Storm emerge from the tunnel, followed by Logan, who is carrying Xavier.
Logan?
Logan walks past her. His jaw drops. Wide to reveal the helicopter is gone. Stryker's body lays on the ground, eyes wide in the frozen scream. The steel chains wrapped around his throat.
Magneto.
Logan stares at Stryker's body for a beat, then suddenly turns and stares into the surrounding woods.
What's wrong?
Dam. Angled down on the side of the dam, a large chunk of the concrete mass cracks and slides down. 1 billion gallons of water erupt through the opening. Forest clearing. The trees begin to shake. Clumps of snow fall from the branches. A faint rumble and the sound of snapping wood echoes in the distance. It's getting louder.
Run.
What is that?
Boom!
Alkali Lake. All of
Boom.
it.
Boom! Wind explodes from the forest like a shockwave, almost knocking the group to the ground. They turn to see a massive black shape tearing through the forest. The X-Jet is slicing across the tree tops over their heads, awkwardly trying to slow down over the helipad. Storm grabs Nightcrawler. He knows what to do. He wraps his arms around her and bam! X-Jet, cockpit. Bam! Storm and Nightcrawler appear in the cockpit. She takes the seat next to Rogue, who is still wide-eyed and shaken, holding onto the controls with white-knuckled fear.
It is okay. You can let go.
Storm grabs the controls and steadies the jet. Forest helipad. The jet stabilizes and lowers to the helipad. The ramp descends, revealing Bobby.
Hurry!
The kids scramble up the ramp. Colossus takes Xavier from Logan. X-Jet, cockpit. Rogue looks out the windshield and sees a massive wave of water heading straight for them. Trees snapping like twigs. Storm has her hand on the controls, ready to lift off. Rogue eyes her nervously. X-Jet on the ramp. Cyclops leads Jean up the ramp. Logan is behind them.
Take us up.
Storm yanks back on the controls. The X-Jet rises, barely dodging more debris and water as the tunnel, exit, helipad, and Stryker's body are engulfed. Stryker's base, augmentation room. The side of the room explodes and a torrent of water crashes in, flooding everything in the room. The diagrams, the equipment, and the weapon X-Tank. X-Jet ramp. Logan stands on the ramp looking down at the raging waters below. He looks closer to see the waves head down river, flooding over the old base, washing it away with any remnant of Logan's past. X-Jet ramp. With a solemn look on his face, Logan turns around and heads up the ramp. It closes behind him. Dissolve to X-Jet. It's quiet. We only hear the steady hum of the jet. The kids sit in the rear, leaning against each other. Bobby and a few others are sleeping. Jones is playing with Nightcrawler's tail. Logan watches Cyclops wrapping a bandage around Jean's eyes. Actually, he's just watching Jean beat. Xavier glances at Logan and nods. Logan gets up and heads to the cockpit. Storm and Rogue are on the controls. He puts a hand on Rogue's shoulders. Storm looks back at the kids, at the X-Men. Airspace day. The X-Jet disappears into the clouds. Fade in. House of Reps. Moments later, President McKenna is in the middle of delivering a State of the Union address. Abrams, a senator in the front row, is pouring a glass of water from a pitcher.
In this time of adversity, we're being offered a unique opportunity, a moment to recognize the growing threat within our population and to take a unique role in the shape of human events.
Angled on the president's podium and the files that Stryker showed him at the beginning of the film.
I have in my possession evidence of a threat born in our own schools.
He pauses, looks at the vice president, who sits strangely dazed.
A threat we must learn to recognize in order to combat it.
He pauses again, looks around. All of the people around him are sitting perfectly still, completely motionless. Pull back to reveal every single person in this room is frozen in place. Senators, aides, Secret Service, other government workers. Senator Abrams is still pouring water. It overflows the cup and runs down the table. Control booth, same time. A dozen tech guys are perfectly still, monitors switch to static. House of Representatives. The president sees that his teleprompter has gone to static. Suddenly, the doors swing open, revealing Xavier and Logan. They head down the aisle towards the president. Logan holds a file folder in his hand. The president stares, dumbfounded as they approach.
Who are you people?
My name is Charles Xavier. Please, sit down, Mr. President.
I'd rather stand.
Xavier nods. Logan glares at the president, who looks around nervously.
We're mutants, but we are not here to harm you, just to talk.
Logan hands the files to the president.
These are the files from the private offices of William Stryker.
McKenna hesitantly reaches out and takes the files, thumbs through them.
How did you get these?
Let's just say I know a young woman who could walk through walls.
I've never seen these before.
I know.
Then you also know I don't respond well to threats.
This isn't a threat, Mr. President. This is an offer.
While McKenna continues to look at the files, Xavier approaches the podium. Logan looks at the frozen senators, impressed.
I realize you may have information about me, about my school, about our people. I'm willing to trust you, Mr. President, if you're willing to return the favor.
What are you proposing?
There are forces in this world, mutant and human alike, who believe that a war is coming. You'll see from those files that some have already tried to start one.
Logan watches as the pitcher of water that Abrams was pouring comes to a trickle. He waves a hand in front of the senator's face.
If we expect to preserve peace, we have to work together.
Beat. McKenna looks around at the frozen Congress.
Do you understand?
McKenna stares at Xavier strongly. For a long moment, he doesn't speak. Then,
yes, I think I do.
I'm glad. We are here to stay, Mr. President. The next move is yours.
Logan and Xavier head back up the aisle and disappear behind closed doors. The president looks around, startled, as the room comes back to life. Control booth. Same time, the monitors snap out of static and display live video of the president, who's not speaking. House of Representatives. No one in the room has any idea what just happened. Abrams has poured water all over his pants. He cleans it up, embarrassed. At the podium, President McKenna looks at the vice president, who glances back at him. McKenna looks at the teleprompter and to the audience, who are waiting. McKenna inhales deeply and looks at the files on his podium. He looks at the old files, the ones he was about to consult, and carefully places Xavier's files on top of them. House of Representatives, hallway. Xavier and Logan head down the long hallway past guards and workers who walk by, unaware that anything has happened at all. Fade out.
We're clear.